Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. Let us get started. Apparently it's also the Lunar New Year, so Happy New Year to all celebrate. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say all Chinese people or if all celebrate is better. Hopefully someone can enlighten me. In any case, let us start somewhere. Happy New Year, Eagles Big Dialecticals. I still love your name, it's so sick. Oh nice, thank you Jujbani for following.
Alright. Just became a follower of shamanism.
I had some, what do you call it? Some TikToks I wanted to go through on stream because I thought they were very cool and very educational and stuff. So I think we shall do that. So give me just a moment. Alright, and we shall do a transition. Is this good? Alright, let's try. Oh, what's that look? Oh, that's my own stream. I'm just gonna. Is it? Yes, it is. It's wrong. What the fuck? There we go. Put this here for now. Alright, and the chat should work fine. Let me just check. Check. Yeah, there we go. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. Or is this good? This is fine for now. So I've saved a few TikToks about Ramadan, and I want to just go through those real quick. And also some others. Let's start with this one. This guy runs this channel called Videshi, which in Bengali means like it means like Outlander basically, like someone who says in another country. And I really like this their channel. They often have some really good videos.
Why do Desis call Ramadan Ramzan?
Right, let me just turn off Spirit City, because it was distracting me a lot.
Or Ramjan, and is it wrong? Ramjan Mubarak. My name is Ifti, and this is the first part of Bidashi's Ramzan series, where we're covering South Asian stories about Islam's holiest month. If you're like me, you grew up saying Ramzan until one day you read that it was actually Ramadan, and you wondered, have I been wrong my entire life? Not really, but the difference lies in one letter, Dod. This letter sound is so unique.
Sorry, I'm just trying to also do something else. So we're doing very great. Oh, there we go. And we'll just have the sound low. There we go. This looks a little bit better.
They call Arabic the language of Dod. It's a sound no other major language has, and it sits right in the middle of Ramadan. So what happened to it? Islam didn't arrive in South Asia directly from the Arab world. It came through Turkic and Afghan dynasties like the Ghaznavids and the Mughals. And all of these dynasties ran their courts in Farsi, or Persian. This was a language of literature, law, and power across the subcontinent. So when
this is also something I wondered about a lot when I was younger, like why, like how, because in my school there was a lot of Arabs, a lot of Muslims from like other parts of the world, mainly Arab Muslims, actually mainly Kurdish Muslims, mainly like from Turkey or some Arab countries like Iraq, and oh, his ad, it is Bidashi, it is bidashi.co. I can also, I'll link the video in chat as well. There you go. But this is something I always wondered about. Sorry. You're very welcome, friend. It's something I wondered about a lot because I was like, how come, my classmates, these other Muslims, they say these Muslim words differently from me. For example, in us Bengalis, we usually say sehri, like the last meal you do before the fast continues in Ramadan. While in Arabic, you say suhoor. And there's a lot of other small differences like that. For example, we say namaz, and Arabic speakers say salah. A lot of like small but significant differences in totality.
Arabic religious vocabulary entered our languages. It came through Persian first. But Persian doesn't have the dod sound, so they mapped it to the closest sound they do have, which is the same letter pronounced zad. Ramadan became Ramzan, which became Ramjan. And this swap happened.
This is another thing. Like my father and a lot of Bengali uncles and aunties I know call it Ramzan for some reason, and this is a nice explanation as to why that is.
Every other word that also had dot. Wudu became wuju, which became oju in Bangla, and fard became farj, which became faruj in Bangla. Same letter, same shift every time. Now, if you've noticed more Desi people saying Ramadan lately, you're not imagining things. Over the last few decades, there's been a gradual shift back towards Arabic pronunciations in South Asia. Some of that is globalization, some of it is part of the mass migrations from South Asia to the Gulf, and some of it is a broader push towards what's seen as more authentic Arabic forms. But the important piece is that this is a phonetic difference, not a theological one. Both words refer to the exact same thing, and there's nothing wrong with using either in conversation or speech. Saying Ramzan instead of Ramadan is no different from saying algebra instead of al-jabr. Why do they...
I really like the comparison in the end. But yeah, I think that is it's a very good explainer. Let us watch some of these other videos. We're gonna be Ramadan maxing. Oh, okay, I'm gonna close this, it's confusing me a lot. Close these. Alright, we're opening that one. This one and this one. I just need to unsave this one because I've saved it to my
Why do Desi's...
my things to watch and stream thingy. Alright. These regional differences are beautiful for real. I love humans. Yeah, no, I think they're very cool. Though they are very confusing to your average. It's very confusing to your average like second generation immigrant guy who's just like being told by the others, why are you saying it like that? That's wrong. Oh, oops. Haram place to have it paused. I think that's so funny. Alright, and here's another one. I want to learn how to make this. I want to see if I can go out like tomorrow or something and buy the ingredients for this because it looks so good.
During the month of Ramadan,
I'll copy a link and see if I can like make my family make this because this looks so good. I've seen so many Arabs make this and I'm just like so jealous. Like, I mean, Ramadan Kareem, brother. Like I'm jealous. Like we have lassi, which is amazing, but this looks amazing in another way, you know.
Of Ramadan, we drink jalebi.
Muslims, mashallah, like our food, like during Ramadan, the quality of our food just explodes. No pun intended. Like it's so good.
Nourishes your body after a long day of fasting. Made with dates, it gives you the neutral nutrients and energy you need to restore yourself.
What the fuck? What the fuck is that? Playing is. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's. I'm sure. Yeah, okay, I guess I'll allow that. That's my shilling.
I like to add a splash of roll.
Sorry, I recently enabled stream elements and I didn't know that was one of the things, but I think that's okay. It's going back a little bit, sorry.
Nutrients and energy you need to restore yourself after Iftar. I like to add a splash of rose water because it's gentle on the stomach and a drizzle of pomegranate molasses for that deep, bold flavor. Then I top it off with raisins, pine nuts, and walnuts. A traditional Lebanese way of adding more nutrient-dense ingredients so we can sustain our fast without feeling faint or needing to break our fast. During the
Mashallah, looks so good. Alright, what's up, Aiden? I'm hearing you out. W stream. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying my best to be W stream. I know, right? It looks so good. Also, I love watching food videos, so like to me it's just like watching food videos on stream is just kind of perfect for me, you know? It looks so good. It looks so refreshing. There's only like 45 minutes until I can break fast, but I don't have the ingredients to make that. I wish I did. Ugh, and the ingredients for it would be so expensive as well, and I'm very broke nowadays. Oh well. Okay.
It's the first day of Lunar New Year and the first evening of Ramadan.
We need more food, damn it. Communal food time. Yeah, dude, for real. We're going to be breaking Iftar together, at least, well, I'll be breaking my Iftar, and we're just gonna chill together while I break my Iftar. I really want some Pakistani food now, dude, real. I wish I was, I low-key wish I was home, eating, like, my family's food. Mainly the food my mom makes. Good grief. Watching food videos while fasting, so brave. This is a very, you say it's brave, but this is, like, a very common thing. I don't know why. A lot of Muslims do this. We love watching food videos while fasting. I don't, like, it feels like it also just happens extra, so.
He needs to get more Chinese immediately, and then we're going to Islam.
Alhamdulillah.
Ni hao salam alaikum.
We're sending this to Raf right now. Do I have Raf as a thing here? All these people, most of whom I do not know, unfortunately. Raf does. Oh, what the heck? Why can't I send it to Raf? That's messed up. Okay, continuing. This is not Ramadan related, but we'll watch it in a bit. This is TikTok related, that's important. So we'll watch that in a bit. Are there any more Ramadan ones? Yes, there are a few. I'm gonna watch those. Alright. This one. Why does it not have sound on by default?
How are you?
Someone was saying that they were having a date flavored vape. That's so stupid. That's the funniest thing. Yeah, bro, I'm just gonna have my vape and then like a glass of water. That's how I'm starting out my Ramadan.
Sister, how are you?
Wait, what just happens with this video? Alright, we are reloading this. I don't know why the TikTok player on browser is so dog shit. I think I can say that. I think that's not swearing.
Alaikum sister, how are you? Where is your hijab? Ramadan. Leave her alone. Hey, don't worry about it. Malak dakh.
Wait,
I have to go salli.
who are you?
I am brother Muhammad Saleh Ali Trawhi Hundumay.
Hello, how stupid these are. So stupid. Oh great, another one. JJK.
Hey brother, you forgot something. I knew it. I'm gonna kick your ass in the name of Allah. Domain expand. You forgot your tasbih. What are you doing? I'm sorry. I guess fasting is getting to me. It's alright. Thanks for that. Have a good day.
Who makes
one other
this?
thing. Domain expansion. Infinite Iftar. Huh? But I didn't sense any curse energy from him. How's that possible? Wow. All this food. How the hell do I even resist?
Tabarakallah. Brother, suit yourself.
Hot dog, sandwich, ramen, steak, chicken, burger, pizza. I gotta break free. This is getting out of hand. Domain expansion. Ramadan break. That was close. Oh, seems like it's Iftar already.
Well,
must have been some
timing.
time since I was trapped in this thing. Thank God I have a shawarma with me. I'm starving. What was that?
You fool. You really did fall for that?
Incredible. I don't know why it is like. Okay. I don't know why this just ends being a Toji edit, but there you go. Oh, and this is a very funny sister recreating a work of art. Also, I keep forgetting to like unlike these. Ah.
وقعت امي شاورما مع زياده طحينيه.
نعم.
وكمان قطعه تفاح وتقريبا 3 لتر مي. فمش عارف هل اكمل صيامي ولا اطعمني الله وسقاني. يا شيخ.
Going on the computer and watching videos together as a cause and exit. Welcome to the worldwide Latino world, brother. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Oh, you're Brazilian? Nice. What do you think of Pipa No Money's new song about Brazil? That's the real question. Okay. Are there any more Ramadan related ones, or are we moving on to non-Ramadan stuff? I think we are. Alright, we're moving on to non-Ramadan stuff. There's a bunch of other cool videos I want to look at. The song, I may have not seen it. Let's see if I can find it. I'll just do that, even no money. Yeah, he basically just like made a new song about Brazil. I feel okay, I'm gonna wait until Iftar until we watch this because I feel weird about watching it during Ramadan. I don't know why. Well, whatever. We'll watch it during Iftar in about 35-ish minutes. No wait, in 35. Okay, in about 25 minutes, I'll put on a video while I prepare some food. In about 20-ish minutes, and after that, once I prepared food, you know, we break fast. I'll break the fast with you guys, and then we'll do prayer while some videos running, and then we'll find it. Yeah, there you go. It seems very accurate, to be fair, Lavelle. Yeah, it's got the Brazilian Sudomiku. Okay. This is like the world of Trench Crusade, which is very like 40k-esque, like Warhammer-esque in like grim darkness vibes. I've been seeing it popping up on my FYP recently, and I think it looks very cool. And I want to share it with you guys. One of the factions in this world, like in the world of Trench Crusade, is basically like somewhere between 16th, 18th century fantasy, like very hellish fantasy on real life Earth, where like a portal to hell opened up in the Holy Land or something, and that portal, and then you know hell's forces are like fighting all the world, and one of the factions in it is the Iron Sultanate.
Opened, much of the world turned to divine absolutes. The Sultanate did not rely on just this. The Sultanate is not unified by a single prophet, church, or miracle. It is bound by continuity. Empires have risen and fallen outside their lands for millennia. And while hell was certainly interpreted as an apocalypse, it was treated as another invader. To the Sultanate, demons are not just symbols of sin. They are entities, and entities can be studied. Their scholars catalogue infernal physiology. Their engineers design weapons based on geometry, pressure and heat, not prayer. While the Christian church sanctifies bullets, the Sultanate calculates trajectories that pierce demon flesh, regardless of belief. Imams fight beside artillery crews. Calligraphy is etched into armor as stabilizing patterns, focusing the soldier's will, not replacing it. This does not mean that faith is absent. It means faith is disciplined. The Sultanate distrusts miracles. A miracle cannot be replicated. A weapon can. When the gates of hell opened, much
I'm back. Sorry, I had to real quick. I was being called by my family, and I want to check on my father, who is like in the hospital again. But so far, so good, at least. Alright. This is something I saw. I don't know how realistic this thing is, but it looks very cool.
Launched this, the world's first flying power station, a helium-filled aerostat housing 1,200 kilowatt turbines capable of harvesting high-altitude winds 2,000 meters above the Sichuan province. Traditional wind turbines stand just 100 to 200 meters tall and operate within the lowest layer of the atmosphere, where wind is slowed and destabilized by friction with the ground, leading to lower average wind speeds and greater turbulence. But at altitudes exceeding 1,000 meters, wind becomes faster, steadier, and more directionally consistent. On average, in the Yibin Basin, where this project was piloted, wind speeds 2 kilometers up are up to 4 times faster than in the basin. And because wind power scales with the cube of wind speed, that means the same turbines could generate 64 times more power. To make use of this advantage, in January of 2026, China launched the S-2000, a 197-foot long, 131-foot diameter, lighter-than-air aircraft. Its aerofoil design forms a duct that compresses and accelerates airflow into the turbine array, maximizing energy capture and giving it a maximum power rating of 3 megawatts. The tether then transmits electricity back to the ground as medium voltage direct current, a choice that minimizes electric efficiency losses typically associated with long-distance power transfer. In its operational test flight, the S-2000 generated 385 kilowatt hours of electricity, enough to charge around 30 electric vehicles or power an average urban household for an entire month, and making it the world's first airborne power system. For now, this is just a demonstrator, and its ability to provide stable power, operate safely in crowded aerospace, and overall cost of these projects will ultimately determine whether this technology stays afloat. If you like science and finally understand the term cloud infrastructure, follow for more. China just launched this, the world's first flying power station, a helium-filled aerostat housing 1,200 kilowatt turbines capable of harvesting high-altitude winds 2,000 meters above the Sichuan province. Traditional wind turbines stand just 100 to 200 meters tall and operate within the lowest layer of the atmosphere.
Fails to get the current song. Interesting. Hatsuki, I hope you wish your father recovery. Thank you so much, Hegel's Pick Dialecticals. Take care. Alright. Ooh, seal video. Let's watch this real quick. Look at it. I hate this edit. I hate this edited form. I hate when it does that sound. I hate it so much. Ah, so annoying. Okay, right. What is this? Oh, right. Chinese New Year. This is so sick. Whoa, sick.
身披忠诚惊雷之体，40、40、40、80，给生化人送上超级春节的祝福。
This is so sick. I need to send this to freaking. And the correct sound is bow bow bow.
踏平生化斯坦，我一马当先。战马套装现已上架超级商店。
Someone send this to Raph. I'm just actually Raph says that he sees it when you tag him, so I'm just gonna do this. Raph does stuff. There you go. In case I haven't already sent it to him. There you go. Alright. And a skit. I love Xenonion. Xenonion, in case you guys don't know. There's this Paradox Interactive that make like super nerdy strategy games. They have this one game called Solaris, which is a space strategy game. And for some reason, one of the best like parody studios out there is about this game. At least in my opinion. This is a very good parody studio called Xenonion.
Gary, I'm a student at an artisan enclave liberal art college, and I believe in individualism. Today, I'm surrounded by 20 hive mind drones.
This is also low-tech.
My first claim. Independent thought is an important part of existence. To debate this, I'm joined by Saivan Hivemind Drone 36115.
We have met the vessel of the others.
Okay, let's be respectful here. I'm not just a vessel. My name is Gary, and I'm from the UNE. Also, are all of you in the room communicating with me right now?
We are one.
Okay, so should I just address all of you then?
We are one.
Okay. So, what's your counterpoint to my claim?
The self is a prison from which only we have escaped.
I like it. Green indicate participants support the speaker's counterclaim, and they're all just green. Because, you know, hive mind.
Why do you think the self is a prison?
What is a single voice compared to a magnificent chorus?
Do you have any qualitative studies that can back that up?
We have assimilated knowledge.
Okay, cite it.
Our collective is an island of warmth and harmony in a sea of discord.
I mean, you could just be describing any liberal art as an enclave art college.
How cold and lonely it must be to face the darkness of space alone.
If you're
True.
trying to say individualism can leave some feeling lonely and isolated, then yes, that is valid.
We are one. We are...
This is basic. This is my pitch for saying that we should all become a hive mind. Okay, I also think that humans get it off as a hive mind.
All. Our unity cannot be divided.
At least somewhat as hive mind, like sort of like how the Geth are in Mass Effect. Because they're just like, they're able to just share thoughts like at infinite speeds with each other immediately. And I think that's very cool.
Elements of collectivism are advantageous, I agree.
Primitives enlightened.
However, a key point of individuality
Primitives enlightened. I like
the
this.
right to
Most, it seems like all their lines are just rips from the lines they have. I think the advisor has in the game.
bodily autonomy. You say that you assimilate other species by having them breathe in a cloud of fungal spores, right? I mean, how does your consent process for that work?
Uh-oh.
Wait, what is that?
We have adapted a species to suit our needs. We are one. Our swarm is strengthened. We will annihilate the others.
Incredible. Work of art. Alright. This one is important for all of those, to all of you who use TikTok. This one is important. I've already done this on my own.
You saw TikTok's new terms of service. Don't panic, calm down. Now, what is most alarming about this is that it infers it is collecting information about whether or not you are transgender, non-binary, if you are an immigrant, if you are a legal migrant. You know, can't think of any reason that anyone would be collecting that kind of data in this political landscape, but, you know, go to the settings in your TikTok app and scroll down to the ads section. Open up that sub-menu. From there, you're going to find a little switch that says targeted data for off-app activity. This is what allows TikTok to collect information about what you do off of their app on your phone. You are going to switch that to off, and that actually does legally prevent them from collecting that data because you have said, no, I do not consent to this data being collected. Therefore, you cannot because you are giving me the option to opt out of it. Given the data that TikTok says it's collecting on its users now under this new agreement, which include things like immigration status and gender identity, I highly recommend that everyone switch this off. Following that, there is another section which is clear my TikTok data cache. This deletes the information that TikTok holds on you apart from that which you need to access and use the app. This is very similar to clearing your data on Facebook. It's a lot of work to find it, but if you find this button, you can basically force the company to delete any information they have collected on you. Now, they do give you the disclaimer of, oh, well, this could take up to 30 days, but you can refresh it every 24 hours. So every 24 hours, you can be putting in a new order to clear out any data TikTok has collected about you. Now, unfortunately, if you've given this app any camera permissions or any microphone permissions, there's going to be a chance that it's collecting biometric data about your voice and about your face. You can't really stop that without turning off both camera and microphone permissions entirely. However, even with these new terms of service, you can completely revoke the app's access to your location data without impeding any of the functionality of the app whatsoever. Hope this helps, and the real thing is, they were already collecting this data. This is just them telling you. You saw TikTok.
Alright, so in case you have not done that, everyone do that. I'll just link this video here as well, in case you guys need the tutorial again. Do fix your TikTok so you don't get spied on, especially if you're American. I don't think I have any American viewers yet, but just in case I do, do follow that, please. Alright. Next up, we have this one, and then this one, and This one. And this one. Right. Actually, maybe we'll watch this one first. Because I think it's a fairly sad video. I don't remember. But Omar's Big Six. This is very fun, very insane.
Chinese New Year
but
and
also
the New
based.
Year in general, Ramadan.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Chinese New Year and the New Lunar Year in general, Ramadan, Lent, the solar eclipse, and this isn't even accounting for all the astrology things happening right now. Something is shifting, okay? Something spiritual, something godly, something beyond us is going to happen.
Okay, I just think the first part is neat. I'm not so sure about the second part. The second part, I think it's a little bit of haram, but what am I to say? Right, this.
20 World Cup for the first
so
time.
Bangladesh will not be participating at the, I think the ICC, like International Cricket Cup, something like that. And it is a very big deal because Bangladesh has participated every year. And we'll find out why in this video.
Won't be at the T20 World Cup for the first time since the tournament's inception. And no, it's not because they failed to qualify. To set context, the T20 World Cup this year is hosted in India and Sri Lanka. Tensions between India and Bangladesh have been at an all-time high since August 2024 and the conclusion of the July uprising, when former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted and fled to India, where she remains despite being convicted of very serious crimes and sentenced to death in Bangladesh. Add to this the more recent allegations that murdered political leader Sharif Osman Hadi's assailants fled to India, and the outrage in India over the murder of a Hindu man in Bangladesh named Vipu Chandra Das, and public sentiment on both sides.
I'm just gonna say real quick as well, specifically this guy, this was a very, very famous, very popular student leader who was murdered. I saw murals of him bloody everywhere in Bangladesh. Like he was murdered like about half a month half a month to a month before I arrived in Bangladesh. He was insanely popular. I will say that a lot of people do suspect that it was not India who killed him. A lot of people think that it's the government that the party that just won the current elections. That was them.
To India, and the outrage in India over the murder of a Hindu man in Bangladesh named Vipu Chandra Das, and public sentiment on both sides leaves relations at rock bottom. These tensions first materialized in cricket when on January 3rd, the Indian Cricket Board, known as the BCCI, instructed the Kolkata Knight Riders, Shah Rukh Khan's IPL team, to drop Mustafizur Rahman, the only Bangladeshi player in the IPL. The reason cited? Developments all around. Bangladesh responded by banning domestic IPL broadcasts for the first time ever, then formally asked the International Cricket Council, or ICC, to allow them to play their T20 World Cup matches outside of India, in co-hosting country Sri Lanka. Their rationale is pretty straightforward. Whatever general concern required Mustafizur Rahman to be forcibly removed from the IPL must certainly apply to the entire Bangladeshi team, which also includes Mustafizur Rahman. In short, the team did not feel safe competing in India. To some, this could sound like an exorbitant request, with tickets already sold and matches already planned, but there is some precedent to this. When India refused to go to Pakistan in 2025 for the Champions Trophy, the ICC created a hybrid model with neutral venues. But Bangladesh's request for similar treatment denied, with the ICC saying no valid security concerns were found. It is important to that India's arrangement was planned months in advance, whereas Bangladesh's request came 5 weeks before the tournament's start. And it's also important to note that India alone did not make this decision.
I will say that, like, even though Bangladesh, like, the request came, like, at a shorter time, but they also, like, from what I can understand, kicked out their only Bengali player at very short time's notice. Like, come on.
The ICC board voted 14-2 in favor of replacing Bangladesh with Scotland. Reportedly, the only two dissenting votes came from Bangladesh and Pakistan. That being said, there's also a reason why many fans feel this decision may not have been fully objective. See, India holds major sway over international cricket, and that isn't just based on fanfare. The Indian Cricket Board receives 38.5% of the ICC's total distributable revenue, more than any other country, and the ICC's own chairman, Jay Shah, is the former secretary of the Indian Cricket Board, and he's also the son of India's Home Minister. So it's no surprise that with tensions high, many Bangladeshi fans feel like these factors...
Okay, him being the son of the Home Minister, I feel like that's insane bias. Like, that is just, like, no shit. This is a very, this is a very biased institution.
Could have been at play. Look, the situation is
Which
not ideal.
is not surprising, but still.
Finger pointing, but I do feel like there could have been a better outcome to this. In a time where tensions are high.
In a way, I will finger point. I do think that this is like ridiculous of the ICC to not be like, oh shit, okay, fine, we'll give you the other venue. Because, you know, again, the other team, like Shah Rukh Khan's team, just removing a Bengali player for no good reason.
Sport should be a unifying factor.
Like literally, they did not have a reason to do that. Like what was he gonna do? Like lynch the entirety of his own team? Like that's bullshit. Like shut up.
Social conditioning. It's propaganda. Because America is designed around allowing the super wealthy elite to do whatever the fuck they want. Can I curse on this?
Well, you can now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to American militarism, that's something I can't cross.
Israel is an extension of American empire. Israel is not a separate entity from the United States of America, no matter how much either camp tries to present it as the case.
Why'd you stop doing Piers Morgan? Is it because he does your uncle dirty on these thumbnails? Hassan Piker, welcome to Real Talk.
Alright, this is out on YouTube. We'll probably watch this later. Probably when the Himbo watches this, because he is almost certainly going to watch this, I think. Most likely today. Yeah. Might as well get 2 flies with 1 stone, or whatever you call it. 2 birds, 1 stone.
How dare you become mayor at 34? Now every brown parent's gonna compare us to
this
you.
is true. I love
And now my
Mamdani.
mom
We
wants to
have to watch every
how can I
Mamdani
be a
video.
good Sri Lankan boy? Ask Zaran, how can I be a good Sri Lankan boy? So what's your advice?
First of all, hello, auntie. And second of all, okay.
Notice how he starts by just saying, first of all, hello, auntie. Like, mashallah, but also like, how dare you? You just make all the rest of us look so much worse. Like, he's setting the standard so high.
You know the phrase, never let them know your next move?
Yeah.
So I would argue that has Sri Lankan roots.
No.
Because Muthai Muralitharan, famous spin bowler from Sri Lanka,
Hell yeah.
had a dusra,
Hell yeah.
which means you think it's going one way, it's going the other.
Dang.
So what I learned
Yeah.
from the Sri Lankan community is the importance to be prepared and never let them know your next move.
Damn. Okay, Sri Lankans,
That's how you be a good Sri Lankan
don't
boy.
let them know. All right.
Alright. This one, also cool. This guy is a Muslim Chinese person.
I find it so interesting that when I tell people I'm Muslim and I'm Chinese, they genuinely get so shocked. What's even more interesting is that there are millions and millions of Muslims in China right now. Even an ancient
He
Chinese
looks very bold the way he has his hoodie on.
emperor wrote a poem praising the Prophet ﷺ. But the way that Islam got to China is the most interesting fact. The Muslims and the Chinese have just been hustlers since like day one. This made China a hotspot for Muslim businessmen. They would come and trade their spices, their perfume,
That
their
makes
textiles,
sense.
and most importantly, their knowledge. But what really stood out to the Chinese was their character. Muslim businessmen were known to have...
It makes sense, because, that makes sense, because,
Businessmen were known
what do you call it? You know, the Silk Road going through Muslim lands and, you know, very much connecting China. And also, just like Muslim traders, they were on that grind set, from what I can understand. That's also why Indonesia is like the biggest Muslim majority country in the world.
Chinese was their character. Muslim businessmen were known to have honest ways, fair prices, you could trust them and they would never cheat you. Because of this,
Mashallah, this is not true in Turkey.
Chinese
This is not true in bloody Turkey. Okay, well, at least in tourist areas in Turkey, or I mean, just even slightly touristy areas in Istanbul. That shit's not fun. Don't like that. The traders in Bangladesh, they were very honest.
Leading to one of the first Muslim Chinese populations. Fun fact, even the Mongol
Sorry, let's go back a little bit.
trust them and they would never cheat you. Because of this character, a lot of Chinese accepted Islam, leading to one of the first Muslim Chinese populations.
Mashallah.
Fun fact,
This is also literally the method. One of the tenets of Islam is for you, like, one of the things that's important in Islam is to present yourself properly. Like, you're supposed to present yourself well. Like, you're not supposed to like be annoying and proselytize or whatever, but you are supposed to present yourself well to other people and whatnot. You're basically, every Muslim is an ambassador of Islam at all times, essentially. and you're supposed to behave as such. Like you're supposed to be a good Muslim. You're supposed to be just a very cool guy, like as best as you can. And so, like, these people were doing them up.
Populations. Fun fact, even the Mongol conquerors who went to Muslim land, majority of them accepted Islam after seeing how the Muslims conducted themselves. The Chinese government at the time also did not allow foreigners to bring in their wives. This led to many Muslim businessmen marrying Chinese wives. On top of that, the Muslims gave China a strategic advantage. At this time, China was under threat through the Mongols and the early Ming dynasty. The Muslims supplied China with doctors, engineers, weapons specialists, and translators. Another reason which propelled Islam in China was that Chinese culture has a lot of emphasis on heaven and the calendar. Islamic astronomers came in and fixed the Chinese calendar. This led to a lot of Chinese people believing that the heaven had approved of them. And right now in Guangzhou lies one of the oldest masjids in the world.
I want to visit that. Actually, let's look for that real quick. Guangzhou, not dim sum. Oh, that's a food place. Yeah, interesting. Thank you for doxing my city, Google. Guangzhou, what was it? So maybe I should just like make this go slightly up so that you can't quite see the test. Move this slightly. Okay, astaghfirullah. Ah! Can I just like, I just want this to like hide that. Ah, whatever. Screw it. Screw it. I can't be asked to like try and fix this even more. Okay, hold on. We'll continue. I was looking at Guangzhou Masjid. I don't know why it's called a mosque in English. That's something I do want to find out about. Okay, they could have given a little bit of a better picture. This does look very pretty, but it shows us nothing. Also known as the Lighthouse Mosque, as the Great Mosque of Canton. Interesting, Great Mosque of Canton. Okay, so Guangzhou is in the southern part of China. It looks like a very pretty masjid. It's just, well, most of the pictures are the same though, which is not ideal. Mashallah though, it is very pretty. Alright. Oh, spoilers.
So interesting that when
Alright, we already watched this. This one about the Bangladesh flag was, so Bangladesh flag is slightly off center, and this guy will go over why. Fahim explains. His videos are also very good. He has used AI in some cases, and to which he has received some critique, and he's like, I'm gonna try and use it less.
Why is Bangladesh's flag deliberately
Generally, I like his
off-center?
videos.
Most flags follow one simple rule: symmetry. If there's a circle, it's its dead center. Japan, Brazil, Niger. Yeah, I said that right. But Bangladesh's flag breaks that rule. And no,
Niger.
it wasn't a mistake. It was about war, identity, and survival. In 1971, Bangladesh was in the middle of a bloody war for independence from Pakistan. Pakistani forces were targeting Bengali culture, shutting down newspapers, unaliving intellectuals, burning down villages. Millions were
Literally committing genocide.
displaced and hundreds of thousands lost their lives.
Like they were literally doing rape genocide. That was literally a thing Pakistan did.
The resistance movement knew they needed something to unite the people, a symbol that could inspire them to keep fighting. That symbol was a flag, created by a group of students in Dhaka. Green represented the land itself, rice fields, the rivers, the life they were defending. The red circle represented the blood of martyrs who had lost their lives for independence. In the original version, they hand-stitched a gold map of Bangladesh, a vision of what could be if they kept fighting. But the circle itself, they placed it slightly to the left because they understood something most designers don't. Flags aren't made to stay still, they wave. The students designing it understood this basic reality. By placing the circle slightly to the left of center, they ensured it would look centered when flying. They weren't designing it for textbooks, they were designing it for the sky. That flag
I just realized this background music is the same as in War Thunder. I just noticed.
Slew throughout the 9-month war. It gave fighters something to rally around. After independence was won in December 1971, they simplified the design. The golden map was removed. Bangladesh was real now, not a dream stitched into fabric. The off-center circle stayed. A wartime design became Bangladesh's permanent signature.
I believe that these flags, like this right here, is from when they overthrew the government in 2024 or so.
It looks broken on paper, but perfect in the sky. Why is...
Alright. Also, I don't think it looks broken on paper. I never really think about it. Okay, this is really sick. So, for the Chinese New Year celebrations, they were like doing stuff in their space station. Like, it was so sick. Like, look at this. Like, that is awesome. Look at this. That's so cool.
这是我们在太空第一次吃我们自己亲手烤制的蛋糕，饭后甜点太空冰淇淋。
冰淇淋。Dude, that's so sick. That looks so good as well. I don't know why, but these ice cream cubes look so sick.
我们在中国空间站祝大家马年大吉，阖家幸福，喜乐安康。大年。
That is so sick. The West could never. The West actually could never. This is really, really cool. Alright, another one. I've seen this guy do what do you call it, like skits before. I remember from where.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. شو صار؟ Why are you coming fast? Huh? Why are you coming fast?
I coming fast, huh? You be holding up a traffic like you hold up a TSA line.
These Korean immigrants, they cannot see, they cannot drive.
Oh wait, like look at his phone. That looks sick. Sorry, I'm very distracted by this. Like how it's like red in the middle and green around. It's like Bangladesh flag. I want that. That looks. I really like that.
Korean immigrants, they cannot see, they cannot drive.
Oh, the Asians all look at the same. I'm a Chinese. I've been driving in this country 25 years. 25 years.
That's
technical immigrant in 1991.
That's so cute because I've been here 45 years. So you're not gonna disrespect me in my country, okay?
It's in your country. It's in my country.
I'm coming. 1 second, ya Hamar. Oh, my stupid son. So annoying.
Your son is stupid too?
Yes, you too.
Man, I hated my son. All he's a tutor. He's still bad at school.
Never learn.
Oh my god, it's difficult. Hey, listen. It's a little bit of my fault, a little bit of your fault. But I don't want to.
This is no. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. This is how things could be. This is the world I want. This is the world I want.
No insurance. No insurance.
But look at this. Like this is
my
true
cousin down the
solidarity.
block, he owned mechanic shop.
Really?
Maybe I'll give you a good deal.
Okay, I tutor maths. Okay, I give you a discount for tutoring your
Oh,
son.
my brother.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's okay. Okay.
Ni hao.
Okay. Salam alaikum. Shit.
Okay, one more shit post, and then we'll find something to watch because it's iftar time in less than 5 minutes. I just realized. Okay. Do you guys see this? China plus Albania, slightly more GDP has more GDP than the rest of the world combined. Oh, sorry, I mean a selection of the world combined. Incredible. MashaAllah, good job Albania, we're very proud of you. Okay, right. We're gonna find something to watch. Okay, I'm gonna watch this one. I really like. Okay, what is this? Okay, this is War Thunder. Okay, this is not gonna be fun if you don't know War Thunder, so. Americans are told to hate China, Hassan Piker tells SCMP. Okay, that looks sick. South China Morning Post. Oh, when was he interviewed for that? That's sick. What video do we want? Alright, we'll watch this one.
The MAGA dad killed his wife and shot his daughter over a football game. Why is MAGA so violent?
Well,
Florida MAGA man.
Also be sure to watch the video on the side, support him. While this is happening, I'm gonna get some food real quick. I'm gonna get my food and my water and all that stuff. Be back.
He killed his wife and shot his 13-year-old stepdaughter over an NFL game. A father killed his own daughter because of an argument over Trump. Don't argue with MAGA. Write these bastards off. They've left the reservation never to return. They said it was a misfire. Here's that story. A British woman shot by her father in Prosper over Trump argument.
The UK native never returned home. She was shot in the chest inside her father's home and died at the hospital.
Okay.
Body camera footage shows what her father, Chris Harrison, told Prosper police that day.
Getting ready to go to the airport and we were talking about guns and she said, "You got a gun?" I said, "Yes." I got it out and it just went off as she stood there. Like, as I pulled it out, it went off.
The Prosper Police Department told Fox 4.
Of course, this is not illegal. This is the most Texas story of all time. He's not even being punished for it. It was crazy.
After it completed its investigation, it sent it to the Collin County District Attorney's Office for further review. A grand jury
They had argued. She went to leave. He called her into his room and shot her. He claimed he was showing her his gun.
issued a no bill on the case. No arrests were made and no charges were filed. But overseas,
Is that guy getting deported or what? No, brother. He's a patriot. He's a patriotic individual, a patriotic style individual.
He's a gosh darn patriot. Yeehaw.
MAGA family annihilator, by the way. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, it seems. Even British ones. This is what I mean when I say American culture is about killing your family members, okay? American culture is gun, burger, murdering your family members. That's what it is. It doesn't matter. You can be trans and do it. You can be
His editors always do a really good job with these videos. They always just pump these videos out.
There were two, actually. You could be black and still be a white supremacist and do a school shooting. You could be a young girl, a teenage girl, and do a school shooting and still it comes out that you're a groiper. It's just the most American thing. What's more likely? Looking at statistical analysis, the likelihood that you are engaging in a school shooting goes up a lot higher when you find out that you're far right.
Russell Wilson is a former Dallas County prosecutor. He notes accidental death.
It is time. Alright, time to break fast. And once I break fast, I will we'll continue this video. I'll go pray while I'm ready to finish up the rest of my food. Yes, that's the plan. Right. For Muslims, when we break our fast, we're always supposed to start with one date and a glass of water. That is what we call sunnah, aka like I guess recommended behavior or something like that. Because that is what our Prophet ﷺ did.
Are prosecuted on a case-by-case basis, and not all result in criminal charges.
Regardless, the person responsible has to live with the consequences of their actions, whether they're labeled.
We're a nation of laws, brother. And in this here United States, one of the laws of the land is if you are shooting your daughter, you have your God-given right to do so.
Criminal or civil or, or nothing at all.
Texan laws on guns
It is absolutely insane that they didn't do anything about this initially.
different to England.
Lucy Harrison's mother addressed the press after the coroner's inquest was released.
It results in too many deaths in the USA. Furthermore, it is mine and Sam's strongly held view that the US investigation led by the Prosper Police Department lacked the rigour and scrutiny you'd expect if this had happened in the UK. Lucy deserved better.
She's right.
In our
It is insane.
Russell Wilson said it's unlikely
that they just asked the dad, is like, oh, what happened? Oh, I wasn't drunk. I just picked up my gun and then I accidentally shot her in the chest. Like, you should do a little bit more investigation than that. They're probably too busy trying to, like, hunt down minorities or some shit.
UK will pursue a criminal trial because the shooting happened here on U.S. soil, and it is the local law enforcement that takes the lead in terms of prosecution. However, the case can move forward in the civil courts, and civil lawsuits can be filed. We did reach out to Chris Harrison for any comment or statement, but we have not heard back.
This guy would have been immediately locked up if he was black. I mean, yeah, it's a nation of laws, baby. That's how it is. Dad shot daughter after arguing about Donald Trump. Now, the reason why this became news in the UK is because this happened on the 10th of January in 2025, last year. So why is it a news story in the BBC this year, 7 days ago? It's because it was such a normal incident from Texas standards that he's been walking freely since last year, since he did this. The only reason why this became a matter of national news in England is because there is a civil proceeding taking place right now. A British woman who was shot dead by her father while visiting his home in Texas had argued with him about U.S. President Donald Trump earlier that day. Lucy Harrison from Warrington in Cheshire was shot in the chest on the 10th of January in 2025 in Prosper near Dallas. Police in the town investigated the 23-year-old's death as a possible manslaughter, but no criminal case was brought against Chris Harrison after a grand jury in Collin County declined to indict him. An inquest into Lucy Harrison's death opened earlier at the Cheshire Coroner's Court, where her boyfriend Sam Litter described the big argument about Trump, who was preparing to be inaugurated for his second term in office. Littler, who traveled to the U.S. with Lucy Harrison for the holiday, said she would often become upset with her father when he spoke about owning a gun. The inquest also heard how Chris Harrison, who moved to the United States when his daughter was a child, had previously been in rehab for alcohol addiction. Chris Harrison, who did not attend the inquest, admitted in a statement sent to the court that he had relapsed on the day of the shooting and had drunk about 500 milliliters of white wine. Littler said on the morning of the 10th of January, his partner had asked her father during the Trump row, "How would you feel if I was the girl in that situation and I'd been sexually assaulted?" Chris Harrison had replied that the two other daughters who live with him, so it would not upset him that much. We're a whole country, bro. I mean, no other way around it. Like, straight up, we are not a nation of laws at all. We are a whole country. Littler said Lucy became quite upset and ran upstairs. He told the court that later that day, about half an hour before they were due to leave to go to the airport, Lucy had been in the kitchen when her father took her by hand and led her into his ground floor bedroom. She was supposed to leave. He forced her into his bedroom and shot and killed her. Littler said he heard a loud bang about 15 seconds later, and then Chris Harrison screamed for his wife, Heather. Littler said, "I remember running into the room and Lucy was lying on the floor near the entrance of the bathroom and Chris was just screaming, just sort of nonsense." The statement from Chris Harrison said he and his daughter had been watching a news item on gun crime when he told her that he had a gun and asked her if she wanted to see it. They went into the bedroom so he could show her a Glock 9mm semi-automatic handgun, which he kept in the bedside cabinet. Harrison said he bought a gun a couple years before because he wanted a sense of security for his family. He denied ever discussing it with his daughter before. He said, "As I lifted the gun to show her, I suddenly heard a loud bang. I did not understand what had happened. Lucy immediately fell." Harrison said he could not recall whether his finger was on the trigger. I wrote a whole long thread on this and people commented saying they live in this county and had never even heard of it. They had no clue. He also lied to the cops initially and said he hadn't been drinking. According to the boyfriend's testimony, Lucy had previously expressed concern over her father having a gun. In the body cam footage that was released yesterday, the dad tells the cops, "She asked if I have a gun, so I went to show her." He acknowledged he had issues with alcohol in the past and said he briefly lapsed on the day of his daughter's death because he was emotional about her.
Like, this is absolutely insane. Like, how can, like, a man just murder his daughter and just lies about it? Like, doesn't even have the balls or, like, the dignity or whatever you want to call it to go to the court and be like, "I did this horrible thing. Please, I must go to jail," or something. Like, the US is such a messed up country. Like, how can you ever claim that America is a good country? Like, it's like, it reminds me of, like, Hassan went through a clip by Burnt Peanut the other day or some shit about, like, how he was bragging about America. I did feel like it might have been, like, as a joke, but also, like, I don't know. I wasn't sure. But he was basically, like, bragging about, oh yeah, we like, a homeless person in America has a better iPhone than your president or whatever, like some dumb shit like that. And it's like, this is the attitude. Like, this is the, like, how can you at all claim that your country is good when shit like this happens? When, like, parents murder their children because they argued about Trump, a convicted sex offender. Well, is he convicted sex offender? You know, someone on the Epstein list, someone who's protected people on the Epstein list. Like, what is wrong with you? You know? Like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing?
Leaving. The inquest heard police officer Luciana Escalera, whose evidence was read.
I'm going to go to the... Sorry, I'm gonna go pray real quick. And then we'll find something else to watch, right?
Noticed the smell of alcohol on Harrison's breath when he was called to the house after the shooting. CCTV footage showed he had bought 2 500-milliliter cartons of Chardonnay from 7-Eleven store shortly before that day. Anya Samuel, representing Chris Harrison, made an application at the start of the hearing for coroner Jacqueline Devonish to recuse herself from the case, saying a fair-minded observer may conclude there was a real possibility she was biased. She said the inquest had been conducted in a manner more akin to a criminal investigation than a fact-finding inquiry. Lewis Norris, representing Lucy Harrison's mother, Jane Coates, said the application was an ambush by Mr. Harrison's legal team. She said Chris Harrison was the person in the room who shot Miss Harrison and the only person in the room when it happened. Devonish refused the application to recuse herself. In a statement issued by his solicitors, Chris Harrison said he fully accepted the consequences of his actions. There isn't a day I don't feel the weight of that loss, a weight I will carry for the rest of my life, he said. Coates said her daughter, who worked as a buyer for a fashion brand Boohoo, was a real force of life. It adds up though. Prosper, Texas is a ghost town filled with model homes, affluent areas, so the cops probably thought nothing of it. I'm sure. The reason this story is making headlines in the British press is because Lucy Harrison's death is currently being investigated by Cheshire Coroner's Court in England, where she lived. Last January, Lucy was shot dead by her father, Chris Harrison, at his home in Texas, but a grand jury in Collin County declined to indict him, so no criminal case was brought. He has been walking freely since. According to her boyfriend, who had traveled with her to the U.S., Lucy and her father had gotten into an argument the day over Donald Trump. On the morning of the shooting, Littler said Lucy had asked her father, "How would you feel if I was the girl in the situation I'd been sexually assaulted?" while they were discussing Trump. Chris responded that he had 2 other daughters living in their home, so it would not upset him very much, saying, like, "I don't care about you. I have 2 extra daughters." Littler recalled that Lucy grew quite upset with that response and went upstairs. Lucy would often become upset when her father talked about owning a gun, as in she already knew that he had a gun. So when he said to the cops the day of, which there's body camera footage of for the record, I don't know if we have it right now. Can someone send me the body camera footage from that day? His response was, "Oh, she didn't know I had a gun, so I wanted to show that I had a gun." She already knew he had a gun. So the testimony from the other witness undermines the argument or the first-hand account of the perpetrator, the dad. Body camera footage captured the moment Texas police arrived at the home of a British man who fatally shot his daughter after they got into an argument about President Donald Trump.
Now. So what's that? No, so we were... She was just about to go to the airport. Who is she to y'all? That's our daughter. Okay. It's my daughter. Okay. And we were getting ready to go to the airport and we were talking about guns, and she said, "You got a gun?" I said, "Yes." I got it out and it just went off as she stood there. Like, as I pulled it out, it went off.
Okay.
It must have been, obviously.
Did you put the gun on the bed?
I put it on the bed straight away, yeah.
Where was it at?
It was in the bedside cabinet.
Okay, yeah, like a little... You just keep it in there?
In a lockbox. Okay. And we took it out to look, and...
I think he was drunk and he was angry and he absolutely shot her, like, on purpose. The very fact that she knew that he already had a gun, according to the boyfriend's testimony, implies that this wasn't like the first time, right? The very fact that she was ready to leave and he actually led her by hand to his basement bedroom to show the gun when she wanted to leave.
Alright, I'm back.
Shows that
Alhamdulillah,
a level.
I've done my Maghrib prayer, which means that I can enjoy eating. My food is also pretty much ready. So...
of premeditation. The testimony from the officers on scene also imply that he was drunk still. They could smell alcohol in his breath.
Just as I picked it up, it went off.
Okay. Ma'am, I'll have you step over here and we'll come over here. Okay. Are they involved?
Can he go or somebody go?
Yeah, we'll get it figured out. I got you. Yep. Here, let's just... I just want to...
This is so insane.
Because they were about to go back to England, so she's not even...
She's not going now.
Okay.
She's not going now.
Okay, boyfriend. Okay.
That's insane.
Baylor Scott White, please hear him, making me all pretty.
Yep, we got it. More than likely, honestly, she's probably going to go to Plano. Based on the injury. It'll be THR Plano. Okay. More than likely. I'll tell you here shortly.
Do you know if she's breathing or?
I'm not 100% sure.
I feel so bad for her. Like, this is so sad. Like, this is so incredibly messed up. How... Like, whatever course of French, or whatever other revolution we want to compare it, things to get to the point where they brought out the guillotines and shit. Like, how far away is America from that? Like, what is required in America till people go, enough is enough? Like, this is not acceptable. Also, this dipshit better go in jail. Like, he needs to go to jail. It is an affront to humanity that he's been walking free.
So,
if I shot one of my children on accident, I would absolutely be destroyed. This dude is way too calm. Yeah, because he's drunk. That's the story. A story, unfortunately, that's all too common, which is why it blows my mind when people look at yet another incident of a MAGA family annihilator and go, oh, it's because they were trans. They were a neo-Nazi. Who has a higher likelihood of doing a mass shooting or a school shooting or engaging in a violent altercation? Far-right neo-Nazis or trans people? The answer is far-right neo-Nazis. It's ridiculous. They make up a large share of domestic terror incidents in this country, and yet our media rarely ever covers it as such. When they used to cover it like that back in the early 2016, 2017 era, Republicans made a big fuss about it. The Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice conducted separate investigations into politically charged instances of violence. Both of them found that it was actually infinitely more likely that someone would be a far-right domestic terrorist than a far-left domestic terrorist. Trump's own Department of Justice deleted that FBI investigation from its website last year. I'm not saying this to be like, oh, all white men are bad and evil and are inevitably going to kill their families, by the way. I'm not making that argument at all. I'm saying that if you were to look at demographics, though, there is one demographic that is overrepresented in these instances. And it's the very same demographic that never gets the same kind of coverage. It's only talked about if the person is not a white man, a cisgender white man. It's ridiculous.
Sorry, just a moment. Apologies. So yeah, that is the state of the US. Absolute shithole country, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm allowed to say that. If I'm not allowed to say that, I'll be very upset with Twitch, considering that Asmongold has said much worse things. Let's see. What happened to X? Rock, Ace War. Let's have a quick look at our Twitch. What are people up to? So wait, no. I think we're gonna watch some Freda, I think. Or maybe something about Ramadan? Also, Freda has a new video coming out soon, which I'm excited about. Parrots, games, and history. Can video games be history? We could start watching that. That is an option. Let's see if we can find something about Ramadan. Yaqeen Institute. I've heard something about Yaqeen Institute and Umar Suleiman. I need to look into these people to basically have some what do you call it, more knowledge about them, because they are quite relevant. I don't like a lot of the thumbnails of these videos. Oh, yeah, okay, we'll watch this one actually real quick. Video by Al Jazeera. Palestinians in Gaza begin Ramadan under fragile ceasefire and dire shortages.
Cheers for their safety. Palestinians have attended the first Ramadan morning prayers at the Great Omari Mosque in Gaza City.
This is something, especially last Ramadan, and I think the one prior to that made Ramadan feel very hollow for me, and I remember writing something about it as well. I might post somewhere at some point. I don't know. In any case, it feels wrong to be happy, you know? Like, and it shouldn't be. You should still be happy. You should celebrate with your family. Like, whatever you do for Ramadan, or if you don't do Ramadan, like, people should be happy. You cannot function without it, but to me, it just feels so wrong. Sorry, we'll continue this.
Not far from areas that Israel targeted with airstrikes overnight. The mosque is also near the so-called yellow line that Israeli forces withdrew to under the ceasefire deal. People in Gaza continue to struggle to access food and clean water. They've been forced to organize their fasting day around aid distribution schedules.
Despite the occupation, the destruction of mosques and schools, and the demolition of our homes near the yellow line, we came in spite of these harsh conditions. Even tonight, when the area was targeted, we remain determined to head to the mosque to worship God.
In Gaza City, Israeli forces attacked several neighborhoods in the east overnight. Al Jazeera's Tariq Abu Azoum is in Gaza City. So Tariq, Ramadan, as we said, has just begun. One thing has not changed, however, and that's Israeli attacks on the Strip. What's it like in Gaza today?
Well, Cyril, Ramadan begins against a backdrop that remains painfully unchanged. A 20-year-old man was shot by Israeli forces just an hour ago near the eastern parts of the city of Khan Yunis, too close to the yellow demarcation line where Israeli forces are stationed and operating effectively to destroy the residential infrastructure at that portion of the Strip. So what we also saw earlier this morning started with the call to prayer that certainly shares the air with drones and the distant echoes of airstrikes. People on the ground have waken up not just to start only fasting, but to absorb a new reality and a new loss that certainly reshapes the emotional landscape of the day, specifically for the family of this young man who was killed today. For them, this day marks a horrific memory that will certainly be memorable for them, and this is also the same situation for Palestinians who are still caught in the endless cycle of unpredictability.
And Tariq, what about the humanitarian situation at the moment? We know that Israel only allows in a fraction of the aid that it should under the ceasefire agreement. How do people find food and secure regular meals for their families?
Well, the humanitarian situation is inevitably is still very dire, and what we can see is that
also the empathy you have in the moment is also important. It isn't wrong to feel bad, just another reminder to keep up the good fight. No, exactly. It is very important that people harness these emotions they feel, whether then they are anger, sadness, or whatever. Love, like whatever expression of love. Because I would say that anger or sadness is what's happening is an expression of love. For a fellow human, what the fuck is that? Sorry, start for a while. It's important we continue, and like we continue to try and feel bad. Don't just focus on feeling bad. It's okay to enjoy things, and we should continue enjoying things. Anything to keep up the fight. Not just Palestine, but also siblings in Sudan and Cuba and everywhere else in the world is facing oppression.
Despite the affordability of some products in Gaza's local markets, but they are sold in a very skyrocketing prices. So here, what appears to be availability does not always mean accessibility. Many families do not have the financial capabilities to buy what they truly need. That's why they started to ration and even to prioritize their meals and navigate very unthinkable circumstances. We saw that most of Gaza's families are reliant on community kitchens and support provided by UN actors across their aid distribution centers deployed across the territory. And the statements that have been put out by UN key actors continue to suggest that the amount of aid sent to Gaza remains far below what's truly needed, and the humanitarian crisis did not witness serious alleviation or even a change for people who have been going through the repercussions of starvation and have been drained by months of conflict, displacement, and terrible humanitarian conditions.
Tariq Abu Azoum reporting from Gaza City. Thank you very much to you and your team, Tariq.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al
It
Jazeera
is
for reliable news and accurate
horrific.
insights. Like, share.
I think I do want to see if I can Palestinian prisoner first Iftar with family. I cannot watch that. That will actually break me if I try to watch that. So, whew, no, we're not gonna watch that now. The good news is that China stopped trading with Israel, not out of the good of their heart, but still it's good that they've, not stopped trading with Israel. They made a new rule that you're not allowed to make any new investments in Israel, which I think is good. In Israel's eyes with terrorists instead of Palestine, so on. Ooh, this is good. Something to watch. I think we'll start watching this. I don't know if we've watched this together before, but this is a really, really, really good video by Fredo. Maybe not this. Maybe we'll watch I did a thing video while I'm eating. Have you watched I farmed crabs in my garage together? Maybe that's one. Put a homemade jet engine on a swing. Yeah, you know what? Actually, we'll watch this one. Watch this one, and then we'll watch Fredo's video probably later today. Look, thumbnail. Incredible. Alright, everyone. Be sure to support I Did a Thing by watching the video on the side if you can. Alright, let's watch this video.
How you going? You ever seen the Space Shuttle Challenger launch?
How you going?
It was sick and successfully launched 7 astronauts into the sky. And I want to do that with a jet engine on a swing. But I don't have enough space to do all the big projects I want to do. Until now, and I've bought my dream house, and even paid extra to get a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and high ceilings. And look at all this space. It's such a liberating feeling being able to chuck a rock anywhere you want, where the only thing I have to worry about hitting is an endangered bird. I own that tree, and that tree, and that tree, this log, and even this poo. And this 100 acres of pristine Aussie bush is filled with beautiful animals and plants, and also has more than enough room for a jet engine on a swing, which might just burn the whole place down. So despite what people say, making a jet engine is actually pretty easy. See this jar with a hole in the top? It's not only a flashlight, but a jet engine. Don't believe me? Watch.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
You have the fire extinguisher?
No. Alright, you're just gonna have to believe me. And that's the simplest version, and then the jars get
And watch crab one. Is it new? It is new. Actually, we can watch the crab one. You know what? Let's watch the crab one. Is everyone okay with that? If anyone wants to rather watch the jet engine one, say it now. You have about a few seconds. Pretty much as much time as it takes for me to pull up crab video.
No, I'm sure every single one.
Alright. I hope no one was complaining, because this is what we're doing now.
Are you watching has at some point thought... How you going? No, I'm sure every single one of you watching has at some point thought about making or selling drugs. And I definitely have. A lot.
Yes.
One for you?
Maybe. But allegedly.
But
the jet
it's
engine one
illegal,
already.
which is why every other YouTuber out there has their boring legal side hustle. Mr. Beast sells crappy chocolates to kids. Logan Paul sells shitty drinks to kids. Dude Perfect sells clothes, probably made by kids, to kids. And Marcus Dribble? And I don't want to sell shit to kids. I want to sell to the most profitable market out there. Chinese men. Which is why today I'm going to try farming something else that grows right out of the dirt. Mud crabs. In a mud crab hotel in my garage and see how much money I can make selling them, and then compare it to growing drugs. Okay, now throughout this whole process, I'm going to be tracking all of it. How much money I spend on materials, the crabs, food for them, and how much time and effort it takes. Now, the first thing I'm going to need is crabs, which lucky for me, your mum already gave me, but I need bigger ones. And I live right next to this muddy creek, which based on this sign, I'm guessing there's mud crabs around. And usually you would have to pay for bait, but I'm just going to use this fish I shot earlier. And that's the best thing about fishing. With every fish you catch, you also get a buy one, get one free crab. So after leaving the crabs out into the night, I got these undersized crabs, which are perfect to grow in the hotel, but I'm not legally allowed to take them. And I'm looking for crabs that are barely legal, as the idea is that the young ones grow quicker. So at the moment at 500 grams is worth around $20, give or take market value and how hungry the buyer is, but they grow at an amazing rate, meaning this crab could more than double its size in 3 months. So the longer I keep them and feed them and resist eating them, the more money I make. So I kept putting crab traps out and bringing in crabs, and if I caught a fish, I put them back in the trap to catch more crabs. And so far this is looking pretty good. I kind of have a perpetual motion crab trap machine. But after 3 days of crabbing, I only caught 3 crabs. So I bought 7 more from the market. Now I just need somewhere to put it, which I probably should have figured out before my car was filled with crabs. But luckily I do have this fish tank lying around that Alexa and I bought when we wanted to make a Chinese restaurant. So now I just need to buy a bunch of separate drawers. And you're probably wondering, why do you need separate drawers for the crabs? Just chuck them all in the big tank you have. But here's the thing about mud crabs. They are dickheads. And if left by themselves, they will commit every crime known to man on each other, including cannibalism, incest, genocide, and even grand theft auto. So I need to keep these creepy guys apart. Cannibalism, incest, genocide, and even grand theft auto. So I keep these creepy guys apart. The drawers also make giving them an even amount of food easier and makes cleaning the tanks easy. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I installed these tap things in each drawer that will make the water level equal in each of them. And
I wonder what he did with the flags afterwards.
Okay, and usually when setting up a tank, you need to spend months being an autistic fish nerd, getting the right bacteria to grow in the tank, which will eat all the crab shit before you add your animals. But I reckon if I just steal a bunch of rocks and water from the river they came from, I won't have to do that, as the rocks are already covered in good bacteria. Also, stealing the water means I don't have to buy any salt or muck around with pH or anything.
Not
a suspicious looking barrel. Means I don't have to.
This idea to me actually seems so smart. I don't know if it's good, but like to me it just seems so smart.
To buy any salt or muck around with pH.
Like, you don't need to, like,
not a suspicious looking barrel at all. But
just
after talking about how smart I am for stealing rocks, I also added this biomedia and bacteria starter kit just because it can't hurt, which cost me around $100. And so far I've spent $100 on the filter, $40 on the drawers, $120 on the heaters, $250 on the crabs, $100 on these taxidermy Ninja Turtle frogs.
We need to show this to craft us stuff.
And the piping and stuff I stole from Bunnings, so I'm $610 in the hole, which when you compare that to buying a small grow house system, it's much cheaper so far. But I don't know if the system is going to work. And the idea is all the crab waste comes out through the bottom here into these sponges which catch all the big stuff. Then it goes through all this porous rock filled with good bacteria that eat all the piss and shit. Then it goes over the river rocks.
This is not a great video to eat, so I just remembered, but it's fine. I'm not squeamish. Thankfully, so.
Which doesn't work, as the water comes out of the pump a lot quicker than it can get out of these holes. And now the drawer is overfilling. So I just poked some holes in the pipe until the flow level went down, which was actually my plan all along, as it also aerates the water. Okay, I can finally get the crabs out of my car. And after almost losing a finger getting all 10 crabs into all the drawers, I remembered I need to take them all out again to weigh them. The first guy came in very heavy at 1,077 grams.
I mean, some of the videos are fine to eat.
The creek I got him from doesn't have a good return policy, so hopefully I can still make him gain weight. So the total weight of them is 8.25 kilos, with the biggest crab weighing 1,077 grams and the smallest being 605 grams. So my money is on the smallest guy gaining the most weight. Alright, let me tell you the specs of this baby. This right here is a water-cooled mud crab. Tolerates between 19 and 29 degrees water. You can pay extra for the protection plan, which gives you metal calcium armor, meaning they are super hardy and come with a 6-month money-back guarantee. These babies will eat whatever you give them. Prawns, fish, carrots, their own poo, literally anything. And with this 10-core Deca system, I should be doubling my money in no time. What I've also kind of created by accident is the crab version of the human centipede. See, the guy on the top is alright, but the guy below him gets all his piss and shit, then this guy gets all their piss and shit, and it just repeats all the way down. It's just a big piss and shit hotel.
See, this is the part I'm referring to. I think it's worse.
Seem quite stressed out, especially the 7 I bought from the Sydney fish market. And the conditions at the market really weren't great. The crabs were piled on top of each other in styrofoam boxes in a hot room with lots of kids lined up to poke the crabs in the eyes. Plus they weren't eating and they were drying out. So I thought a bit of food might help them. So I cut up some salmon I speared into slices and gave it a go. And according to these Indonesian men online, I'm meant to follow the American diet and feed them 10% of their body weight a day, which for most of the crabs is 80 grams, the equivalent of me eating 9 kilos a day. So this guy grabbed it and started eating straight away, but the others weren't interested. But I thought they might be shy, so I turned off the lights and left them overnight.
So the very funny show. Thank you so much, Donatella.
To see the remaining food.
Oh, Donatella, have you seen this video? If not, I have something to show you because you have TMNT in your name. Trust me, you're definitely gonna regret seeing it.
Metal 27. The total got it in raw.
We need to find ways, like all the things you spend the money on.
I don't know, but I reckon if I just getting the right one, okay, things are easy. Raw. I was filled with crabs. They're dickheads. If left by themselves, they'll commit every crime known to man on each other, including cannibalism, incest, giving, but I all the water. Okay, and usually when setting up a tank, you need to spend months being an odd muck around. 120 on the heaters, 250 on the crabs, $100 on these taxidermy Ninja Turtle frogs.
What do you think of the taxidermy Ninja Turtle frogs? When you get a taxidermy Ninja Turtle frog for $100, they're very fucking cool.
And the
well, now you know where to steal them from. You just need to go to Australia and find I Did a Thing. I wasn't expecting that. That's a normal reaction to I Did a Thing's videos. Right, going back to where we were. Can't feed them, or like they're being annoying about it.
Conditions at the market really weren't great. The crabs were away, but the others weren't interested. But I thought they might be shy, so I turned off the lights and left them overnight.
Wakey, wakey.
And in the morning, I was hoping to see the remaining food missing.
That guy didn't eat his food. Guy what? Yes, he is. That guy didn't eat his food.
But something else went missing. A whole ass crab.
Me neither, Donatella.
This gap,
Me neither.
Closed.
How? He totally just crawled away. Where he can be. Probably under here. There's a crab under here. No. He totally got out.
Yeah, one of the crabs just escaped.
He's in here.
Except.
Oh my god.
And I'm really lucky that I found the crab, and he didn't do the most obvious thing and slip under the garage door.
Crab POV.
Crawl down the road, hop on a bus, and go to the RSPCA, where it reports me for crimes against crabs. Instead, it just sat next to the heater in the sump tank all night. So only 4 of the crabs ate their food. So I cleaned out all the gunk, which there's actually heaps of, and now my whole garage kind of smells like a fish shop. Okay, after letting them chill out for like 6 hours, I decided to feed them again. But I'm going to try something fancier to see if they like it. The same fish, but this time it's more stinky. And I really thought it would be easier to get mud crabs to eat, but some of them would only eat if I hold the food in front of their face for like 10 seconds and just wiggle it around. And more crabs ate their food, probably like 6 out of 10. All 3 from the creek are eating, but 4 of the market ones don't want to. And the market ones actually seem to hate food so much that they trick me into thinking they're going to eat it. Then when I look away, they just push the food into the corner. Especially this fat guy on the top, who hasn't touched his food at all and barely moves. Alright, the fish and piss smell was getting way too strong, so I turned on this fan, which I stole from a marijuana grow house, and tried feeding them again. But this time I'm going to rub garlic on the fish, as I heard somewhere that they like the stinkiness. And as soon as I gave the fish to this guy, he started doing a handstand for some reason.
They do weird shit sometimes. This guy doing a handstand.
And by some miracle it worked. For every crab except the traumatized guy. But at least he is moving around a lot more. And you know, I'm already learning stuff about crabs that I didn't know. Like I had no idea when
Is it all dead food though? Because that probably makes some difference. Yeah, it is.
Hold the food
but it does work now.
Face, and then like a scene from a horror movie, 6 tiny little hands come out of their face and start ripping apart the food, which is very similar to how Americans eat.
True. Day 6, Day 5,
And the
piss
piss
garage.
smell just keeps getting worse. It's like a wet market in here. So I stole 200 litres from Sydney Harbour, sucked all the crab shit into my mouth, and then changed the water. And I don't know if Sydney Harbour's water is the healthiest, as it's filled with microplastics and heavy metals. But if I'm already filled with microplastics, then I want the crabs to be as well. And all the crabs seem to be getting much more lively, and they're attacking me every time I try to feed them. And I thought that after feeding them for 5 days, there would be a little bit more respect. But then again, I am keeping them captive in tiny drawers in a piss hotel, so maybe not. Okay, before we go any further with the mud crabs, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Odoo. Managing these mud crabs is burning a hole in my productivity and would have been much easier if I used Odoo, an all-in-one business
Also his ads thing.
management software that provides entrepreneurs like me with a range of applications to simplify the day-to-day management of their business, including invoicing, accounting, project management, website creation, and more. Odoo keeps pace with your evolution, allowing you to add additional applications as you grow and your needs change. Let's say I need to pay a fishmonger for bringing me crab food. I can do this easily with Odoo, as Odoo's invoicing app allows you to manage and track your invoices electronically. It only takes a few seconds to create your first invoice, add your customer details, the products or services you're changing, along with the quantity, and then specify the payment and billing terms. Once a customer has received an Odoo invoice, they'll be redirected to a portal that will let them pay it using whatever payment method suits them best. You can easily track the status of the invoice in Odoo's invoicing app and be notified when it goes from unpaid to paid. So go to my link in the description and get your first Odoo application free for life.
He's having the Great Flood. See, this is what I was talking about.
I'm not sure if you can tell what, but there is meant to be water inside this tank, and not just burnt heating filaments.
Ground has obviously been wet, and I don't know if you can tell, all this metal is rusty. How does my lathe get that rusty? Wet over here, wet over there. What over here? What happened?
And I'm guessing what happened was that either a crab or his food got stuck inside the water outlet, and then the drawer filled up. And I say that because there is currently a piece of food stuck inside the water outlet.
One piece of meat gets stuck on the pipe, the whole garage floods.
Luckily, the crab somehow didn't die, even after not having filtered water for 2 days. And there's a valuable lesson in this, kids. Don't go away camping for 2 days and let your younger brother look after your mud crabs. So I stole some more water from the harbour and filled it back up, and then tried feeding them something different as a reward for almost killing them, and gave them liver, giblets, and a prawn. Prawn is for the traumatised guy that won't eat.
Doing it again. This time I've noticed.
And it's flooding again, and it's the same guy in the same tank. I reckon he's stuffing food in the pipe in an attempt to kill the other crabs so they stop pissing on him. Alright, I'm going to weigh one of the crabs to see if this is working at all. And this guy here was around 638 grams when I first weighed him. One of the smallest. So I hope he has gained some weight.
What was his weight before? Oh, yes! 640 to 740.
And at first I thought the weight gain was good, but he's only gained 100 grams. And considering I'm feeding all of them 2 60-gram pieces of fish a day, he hasn't even gained as much weight as a day's worth of food. So I'm not sure where all that weight is going. He must just be shitting
crabs one day.
He does
I just trust that blue bat. I won't have them.
No, I'm not misgendering him.
Yeah, I know.
looked at his penis.
Nice cock, dude.
And so
I think
far,
they're
I've
also
actually
being
managed to keep
farmed so much that they're beginning to become extinct or something. They're beginning to become endangered.
Food costs really low. I ran out of caught.
Nice cock, dude.
And so far I've actually managed to keep food costs really low. I ran out of caught fish, but I've been feeding them Aussie salmon from the market, which is cheap at like $3 a kilo. And I've gone through like 6 kilos of meat, so that's around $25.
So cheap.
But for the amount of weight they gain so far, definitely not worth it. Alright, I wake up to flooding again, multiple times, so I need to come up with some way to stop that. At first I thought I'd make an overflow pipe on the drawers running down the side here, but that doesn't actually solve anything, as another piece of food can still get caught in that pipe, and also a pipe will mean I can't open the drawers. So I'm going to try the cheapest solution possible, theft. And I stole these adapters from Bunnings. And if I cut up a bunch of sticks on the side, it will create multiple points for the water to go through, even if the food blocks it.
Yeah, gingerly some of the populations are because of blood harvesting for pharmaceutical laboratory stuff. Yeah, no, exactly. It's fucking. It's so shitty.
It should work.
We should at the very least provide them very good habitats, so that won't happen.
And look, this floating food can't get in the pipe. And the food floating is probably the main problem, but it doesn't matter. It flooded again, and I wish you could smell my garage right now. As when it flooded, it wasn't only water coming out of it, but crab shit and fish bits.
Smells just disgusting.
And now everything is just covered in a light layer of shit. It's disgusting, but I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to ignore it. Alright, I've been way too fixated on the crabs and keeping them alive, and I didn't pay much attention to the tank below them, until one day it flooded real bad, and that's when I noticed how much other stuff was living in the tank. And I've accidentally created a home for castaways. They must have been on the rocks or water that I stole. First we've got the snails, and to give you an indication of how crap the water in Sydney Harbour is, when I
This is disgusting. I remember why he's gonna do that, and prepare yourself for something disgusting.
Run up the side of the tanks, but then settle back in. And we got this spirally guy, this weird guy, and a bunch of these black ones. And they clean the algae in the tank, but besides that, they aren't very useful, besides being delicious. So maybe I can sell them to some French guys. Then we've also got these guys, and I'm not really sure what they are, but luckily, I have a fish identification chart. No. No. Ah, circle fish. There's an anemone, which is always waving its arms around and trying to eat stuff, like these tiny crabs, which I'm not sure the species, but compared to mud crabs aren't very impressive, so I don't care. Then there's also these little fish. I counted like 6 to 8 of them, which I probably scooped up when doing water changes. And I'm not sure the species, but they're actually pretty beautiful and hang out in a gang under this rock, just chasing each other around and everything else in here. And they must be surviving on the food scraps that the crabs don't eat and mud crab poo. And it's pretty beautiful seeing everything live in peace and equilibrium in this tank when they were all brought together by an accident. And an anemone ate one of the fish.
Megaphone is really cool, yeah.
Alright, when looking at the footage on the computer, I found something I didn't expect. I was sticking the camera under this rock to see where all the fish were hanging out, and I spotted something. And you can't see it that well, but there is definitely a well-camouflaged animal moving here. It might be like a slug or a snail, but it kind of looks like an octopus. So today's mission is to find out what it is. And I was moving rocks around for a couple of minutes and didn't find it, but then it appeared. There's a tiny octopus right there. I'm gonna try scoop him up. That is a blue ring octopus. That is a blue ring octopus. Come on, let me scoop you.
In case you guys don't know, let's just look up, what is a blue ring octopus? Look, blue ring octopus are 4 extremely venomous species of octopus that are found in the Pacific and Indian Oceans from Japan to Australia. You guys notice this?
Come on.
Yes.
Come on. Come on.
Ah, fucking hell.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a blue ring.
Solo.
That is a blue ring octopus. It's tiny. Whoa. That is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And this is a blue ring octopus, one of the deadliest animals in Australia, capable of sucking off 20 men with a single bite. And apparently they are poisonous as well. And this is insane. It must have been hiding in the rocks I collected, most likely this big cinder block, which means I easily could have put my hand on him and been bitten and killed. So I don't really want to leave him here, as I'm sure he doesn't appreciate the mud crab piss and poo. So I'm going to catch him and return him somewhere safe back in the ocean.
Such an asshole. I don't think he actually did it. Like, let it go there.
Here's something I didn't know about crabs. They like to take their clothes off, like frequent. It's called molting. And the smaller ones like this will remove their outer layer every couple of weeks to get bigger. Now, when it first started happening, I thought the crab was just dead. But then I came back to 2 crabs in the tank. And sadly, I didn't capture the process on camera. But it's like another scene from a horror movie. It literally pulls its own face off, and then they crawl out of their own body, leaving behind their eyes, gills, and mouth. And it's probably one of the dumbest evolutionary things.
No, we did, yeah.
Firstly, they can barely move while they are molting. And then the process kills them some of the time. And then, if it does work, they come out with soft shells, making them perfect for a Malaysian man to eat. And the crabs really didn't consider this before evolving. Also, because these crabs are under a year old and technically minors without clothes on, I'm going to refrain from looking at them while they're molting.
Such an idiot.
And this means the fattening process is working, and they are putting on weight, which is very good. Okay, I feel like an idiot for not knowing this, but the molting process is the most important thing for weight gain. So after this guy shed his shell, he was super hungry and was eating like 2 pieces of food a day and really fattened out. Which makes sense, as obviously they can't gain weight, their shell is restricting them. So that's why they didn't gain that much weight before. I needed them to molt. And apparently, according to the internet, the juveniles molt 1 to 2 weeks, but mine are already pretty big, which explains why it took him so long to molt. But I'm still happy, as after molting in 10 days, he looks significantly bigger. But I'll find out his weight at the end. Everything is going really well. The depressed big guy at the top finally ate some food. And another crab I got from the creek molted. And the crabs from the market are still eating, but not as much. So maybe they are getting prepared to molt or something. I'm also having a lot of fun looking after them, ignoring how bad my garage smells. And I've kind of become obsessed. I really just want to see how big I can make these crabs now. Alright, I'm completely obsessed. I'm the crab guy now. All I talk and think about are my crabs. If someone comes over, the first thing I ask them is, hey, you want to see my crabs?
Hey Alexa, come look at my crabs.
It smells so bad, dude. It's actually the whole house smells. Like someone did a poo inside a dead fish.
And that's the worst thing. I can't even smell them anymore. It's only the other people that notice, which means I'm walking around probably smelling like a crab. And this process is still going really well. I've had all 3 of my crabs from the creek molt, but the market crabs still haven't. And that's either because the creek ones are just healthier or like taking their clothes off more. So I reckon I'm going to feed them for 1 more week to fill them up, and then I might sell them. Alright, I've had these crabs in my garage for 100 days now. And besides the constant piss smell, I kinda love it. They all have unique personality. For example, this one tries to bite me, and this one tries to bite me even more. And I've also learnt a lot about myself in the process. For example, that I like crabs. And I am slightly sad they have to go, but it's time to weigh them and sell them and get some money. And first up, we have the big lethargic guy whose initial weight was 1,077 grams. And after 3 months of work, I have gained a massive 76 grams.
Whoa.
Not good. Next, we have the feisty guy who was 759 grams, so I'm hoping for a little more, if I can get him to let go of the bucket.
It's funny that once they grab one thing, they don't let go. It seems kind of like a design flaw.
And he is now 861 grams, a gain of 102 grams. So far I am not making much money.
Yeah, not.
Okay,
not
number 3 was originally 638 grams, the smallest, but he is molted and definitely looks much bigger, so I'm hopeful. And this is amazing. He has more than doubled in weight and is now 717 grams heavier. Okay, and then I'm skipping to the last guy, who was 792 grams, but hasn't molted and still looks small. And he is 907 grams. So in total, we have gained 2,269 grams, which is not that much, but I don't know how much that is worth until we sell them. And if I take in all the other costs, $610 plus electricity for the filter and heater for 4 months, which is $150 plus my labor, I don't think I've made any money.
950.
Alright, I still haven't sold them. I keep delaying it, as I feel a bit bad, but since I'm not legally allowed to release them back into the nature since I farm them now, which was a mistake I learned after my video called How Many Fish Does It Take to Pull a Boat, which I received a $3,000 fine, I've decided I'm going to keep 5 of them and sell the smallest 5, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do, so I'm going to find someone who doesn't care. I've decided I'm going to keep 5 of them and sell the smallest 5, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do, so I'm going to find someone who doesn't care.
He's just going to like this Chinese seafood place. At least I think it's Chinese, I'm not sure. Literally Japanese.
And selling them was actually a very stressful experience for me. Watching my babies being weighed, not knowing if I actually made any money or not. That went so much better than I thought it would. I got $576 for my 5 crabs. And this only happened as not only had the overall mud crab weight gone up by like 50%, but the price of mud crabs had more than doubled in the months I had them, going from $45 a kilo to $85 a kilo, which means the 5 mud crabs I sold were worth $300 more than the 7 I originally bought from the market.
Oh yes, you couldn't read anything to
This
sell
is
it.
something I really didn't consider in this experiment.
Kirk, if I had the setup, I would not mind doing this. It seems kind of like a chill way of earning good money.
Was that?
But it does. But you probably need a lot more crabs for it to be worth it.
And this is something I really didn't consider in this experiment, was that mud crabs are actually a speculative asset, just like Bitcoin or gold. In fact, my mud crabs actually went up in price more than Bitcoin over the same period. So let's go over the cost. The original 7 crabs I bought, plus parts, foods, and electricity, was $960, not including my 3 months of labor. The profit on the 5 crabs I sold was $398. Even though this sounds good, if we subtract the profit from the costs, I'm still $562 in the hole. So this crab dinner was very expensive, but technically my crabs did go up in value. So should you make a mud crab farm in your garage? Probably not. For 3 months of work, you were definitely better off growing drugs. And I think the only reason those Indonesian men online can make it profitable is firstly because their labor costs are low. They also use cheap scrap fish, and most importantly, they know what they're doing. Thank you so much.
Also, they're growing a lot.
If you like that, please subscribe and check out some of my other stuff.
Incredible. Incredible stuff. I'm pretty much done eating. I mean, edible mushrooms are not tripping mushrooms, to be clear. Yeah, I mean, if you did the other one, you're probably gonna earn even more. Alright. Give me just a moment, everyone. Let me just check some thingamajigs. Alright. We are going to watch this one. Paradox Games and History. Can the video games be history? A video by Fredda, a Norwegian Marxist historian. Very cool guy. Very fond of his videos. We're gonna watch this, and as I finish up eating and stuff, we're going to minimize the screen and have it on the side while we're playing something.
It is June the 6th, 1944, 6:35 a.m., just off the coast of Normandy. The sky is grey, the water a little choppy. The other soldiers huddling in the landing craft all look scared. Ahead, one of them nervously taps his rifle against the floor. A commanding voice shouts, "Clear the ramp, 30 seconds." This is how historian and PhD in Media, Culture and Society from the University of Gothenburg, Adam Chapman, starts his book, Digital Games as History. This is the iconic introduction to Medal of Honor, and Chapman is relating his experience from when he first played the game. Quote, "When I try and think of the first time I had the palpable sense, however basic, that maybe video games could be history, it is this first encounter as a 17-year-old with Medal of Honor Frontline that springs to mind." Adam Chapman is relating an important memory from his teenage years, one that may have profoundly influenced his interests and ultimately his choice of career, leading him to his bachelor's degree in history, his master's degree in cultural history, and ultimately his PhD in media, culture, and society. This is a video about how video games can be history, and about how one of the giants of the genre, Paradox Interactive, approaches this. But first, I'd like to thank Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Private Internet Access, or PIA, is a virtual private network service that tunnels your traffic so that the website or service you're accessing sees you connecting from a different IP address than your own. This can have a lot of advantages. Streaming services have region-based libraries, so the movie or show you want to watch might not be available in your country. With private internet access, you can route your traffic through a different IP address.
I think it's funny they even just advertise this.
Accessing that country's available
like straight up
movies
just say that
shows.
this is what
really
he's
annoying
used
to
for.
search a movie's name plus Netflix on Google, thinking they've got it, only to find out it's not on your country's Netflix. It's happened to me more than once.
Also, hi Kirk. RRR is such a good movie. Like Triple R, such a good Hindi movie.
Google, thinking they've got it.
It's great.
Only to find out
Loki Total War led me to learn quite a bit about Rome. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
it's not on your country's Netflix. It's happened to me more
I learned a
than
lot
once,
of
like
my
when I was
initial
going to
history
watch
from
RRR
history
with my
games.
girlfriend. With PIA,
It was a lot of very bad history, but it then led to me learn more. Unfortunately, I think this also makes a lot of people learn bad history and continue learning bad history, and also become right-wingers. There's a correlation there.
I can easily watch it by changing the server to Sweden. PIA is available for all platforms and can be used on an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. PIA has a no-logs policy that's been tested in court several times, such as in an alleged hacking case in the federal court in San Jose in 2017, whereby a representative testified that his company intentionally doesn't retain logs of the internet activity of clients. This is an example of how a US federal agency couldn't legally access a user's data routed through PIA's VPN, as PIA never stored the data. So, if you would like a safe way to access region-locked content or bypass restrictions set by your internet service provider, among many other use cases, then use my link below to get an 83% discount on private internet access. That comes out to $2.03, and you get 4 months for free. Paradox games are history games. They relate to 100%
That's awesome way to put
in
it.
some way. They're also, some would say, just games.
Relate-
To be
relatable.
fun and to generate profit to a publicly listed corporation, and not necessarily to educate. But it's still a history game. Quote, this first assumption that real history is essentially coterminous with the printed book, that only printed text is capable of carrying serious argument, is a mistake, because Western written history both emerges from oral history and is weaved with a number of continuing performative traditions of engagement with the past. While video games exist first and foremost for fun, which hopefully will then translate to sales, which then may translate to profit, the history within them is still history. Speaking on the difference between fictional pop history and academic history, Adam Chapman, while quoting Munslow, says, "We cannot say that one is pure fiction while the other one is pure truth." As Munslow puts it, there are always elements of the fictive/fictionality in all historying. It is simply unavoidable given that ontologically, history is in narrative form. That's to say, we cannot intrinsically dismiss popular history based on its form. It is still history. The only difference is that written academic history is generally produced by experts in their field, whereas television, movies, and video games largely are not. Therefore,
I don't know, growing up in the UK, I had a fair bit of Rome in our education system, and just really no interest in the colonial part that was just violent, grotesque the Roman Empire. So bleh, but then I'm pagan woman, so maybe I'm biased. The thing is, like, it depends heavily on, like, what it is. Like, a lot of people, when you play a video game, you just get interested in, like, what it is, like very often, you will just get interested in stuff. Like, for me, I got very interested in, like, a lot of Muslim law and whatnot from playing the Salahuddin campaign in Age of Empires 2. Like, learning about Salahuddin, like, I got very interested in it. A lot of this stuff is basically, like what appeals to you, and eventually you will find something that appeals to you, and then you will learn from it, and not necessarily something good, but yeah.
there's nothing inherent to video games that makes it so they cannot be history or even good history, though there are challenges. Video games are uniquely different to movies, music, TV shows, and books about history in that they're interactive. Chapman constructs a dichotomy of reading and doing, which both occur in games. Reading is the consumption of representations. That could be reading in the literal sense, museum exhibitions, documentaries, and so on. Doing is interacting with the game's rules or its mechanics. It's an active involvement in what's happening. Quote, this doing still also generally has the possibility of affecting the representation in some way. An obvious example of this is that when a player wins a game, they also often, in doing so, and how...
And it wasn't like a fan of Rome growing up in because I was a very nationalistic, social kind of get told to hate everything that's Western. For me, it was just, yeah, like, that is something that can definitely color, like, how you, like, what things you want to learn about and whatnot. For me, it was very much, like, just learning about, like, because I've been, you know, growing up in environments where it's just, like, being a Muslim is just seen as bad and whatnot. Constantly your identity under attack. It is especially appealing when you learn about, oh shit, one of the most famous Muslims in history was this really honorable guy that even the fucking Crusaders respected. Salah. talking about Salahuddin. Like that is something you really like. That is something I really, what do you call it, held on to. My heart is still broken for Woody kind of daughters, the coupling of pilgrim holidays since the calendar. But yeah, things that introduce you to new things of interest is always a good thing. You know, the issue is with history games, and Predator will talk more about this, is like, this is a cool way of getting people interested in history, but a lot of this teaches a lot of bad history. You know? Like, some teachers were so competitive when we were in fasting during school. Oh yeah, shit, dude. Real. Like, that should just be, that should straight up be malpractice. I fucking hate that shit. Like, fuck teachers so much. Astaghfirullah for swearing. But, like, screw teachers so much who are, like, doing that shit. Like, being like, oh, you shouldn't fast, blah, 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 blah. Like, you don't know shit. Go away, Westoid. Dumbass. Like, you're a teacher. You should have some intellectual curiosity and learn more about it instead of, like, instinctively going, like, oh, these are people doing weird religion things. Like,
however, inadvertently create a romance or adventure story for their player character. Going further from the next page. Simply, in games, this means that the representation is always partly decided by the playful doing of players, as well as the designing activities of developers. This also means that in games, the audience's own playful doing can affect their own reading. Furthermore, it is clear that if games can function as history, then this is necessarily related to both of these aspects. And if these activities can affect one another, then they must also affect the history that is produced through play. It's easy to reject the idea of these games as containing any history at all due to the extreme subjectivity of their experiences, to essentially say, leave the history to the historians and leave the games to the developers. But history games exist and will continue to exist, and people will probably continue to engage with them as history. The way people engage with this history is fundamentally different to the way people engage with other mediums for history, and this is important for understanding why history is often represented the way it is in video games, and how it affects your understanding of history. This video is about games like Hotline 4, how they handle history and how they shape the way people view history in overt and subtle ways. This is not a video where I'm going to be criticizing the lack of mention of the Holocaust in Hotline 4. There are very good reasons for it being omitted, and I'll go over those as well. I'll instead look at other things that they do include and others that are omitted, and talk about why some aspects of history are left in and others left out.
The worst are the ones that are trying to make you say you are forced to do it. Yeah, no, that... Like, I'm sure some Muslims are forced to do it. Maybe. But also just like most people, I'm pretty sure most aren't. Like most children I know, I grew up with, want it too fast. I want it too fast. I'm like, oh, this is a thing that mom and dad is doing, and this is like a cool thing that brings you close to God, etc. Like, it's something we want to do. And you can say, oh, it's something that you're taught that you want to do. Like, so what? So it's like so many other things in life. Like, there's no forcing Christians religious activities through state to hardly the secular education society you can sometimes claim to be. No, exactly. Like, the West is insanely hypocritical regarding this shit. Like, we do Santa Lucia or whatever, where like all the children sing like this whatever song for Christmas, and it's just like, oh, but that is okay. That is not indoctrination or whatever. I guess it's fine when it's a white people tradition. You know. Like, it makes me so mad that I'd sit out on the first day to some Mets. Oh, real.
Or is a game that wants to be as authentic as possible, but also doesn't. It wants to include as many things relating to the war as possible for you to play with, but it also wants to not talk about other aspects of it. There's a tension between the history of the conflict and the design of the game. Like, the game itself is at war with itself. I'm on record as saying that Hotline 4, despite all its problems, does have the means to teach you some things about history. For example, the game shows you the larger operational level of war in a way that other video games that are mostly digital museums or toy boxes full of historical weapons and vehicles don't. Vehicle arena combat games like War Thunder
mention. I've installed, or I am in the process of installing. No, I did install Enlisted, so we can actually maybe we can play Enlisted while going through this video. Also it's funny that Hitler's blurred out in Hoi 4 in Germany. Yeah, no, it's amusing. So that would change anything. I can recall the Lost player. I've been an atheist since age 11. I'd say the early years brainwashing was higher during my youth. You know, exactly. Like, it's very much like, it's very rubbish. KW, is it good? Enlisted is very fun. Enlisted is basically War Thunder, but you're like a soldier leading a squad. It's very fun. You can also like control some vehicles. It's really cool.
Might give you an impression of a specific vehicle's combat
Like,
prowess
I really
that's
liked it.
skewed, as it doesn't include any of the elements of warfare except for the confrontation itself. In Hearts of Iron, you have to produce these vehicles, and they have to fit into a larger campaign plan that's compatible with your nation's level of industry, its resources, the terrain you'll be fighting in, what other weapons and equipment you have, and more. It's not enough to design a complicated heavy tank. You have to actually produce it in decent numbers, and then you need to maintain it and fuel it. These concerns are very far from your mind when you play games like War Thunder. The community always finds ways to break free of the constraints of so-called realism and create wacky designs like the infamous Space Marine infantry template. But at its core, Hearts of Iron is a game that rejects the notion of Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapons, in favor of a more sensible, grounded, and holistic view where weapons are...
It's funny he says this because it has a DLC called Wunderwaffe, and I'm sure he will get into it.
are just one part of a larger operational whole. However, it's also a game that launched a DLC about Wunderwaffe.
Yeah, there you go.
We should have seen it coming.
Now, to be fair, these weapons still need to be built. Some are more or less practical than others, and it seems, at least from what I've played, that the most practical ones are the ones that saw success after the war. Introducing more of these gizmos that loom larger in the popular imagination than they do in the imagination of historians is a way to market to a specific type of player, and fulfill the fantasies of that specific type of player. More gizmos that these players are familiar with creates historical resonance. History games, or games with a historical setting, rely on what Chapman calls historical resonance. The historical setting of medieval Japan is less likely to resonate with a player if it has giant robots. It clashes with their preconceived notions of medieval Japan. However, there's also a more complicated element to this historical resonance. Quote, resonance between the game and the local context might be established on the basis of the player's specific historical understanding. In a seeming effort to appeal to audiences, mainstream games often deal in well-known histories, probably in order to produce this historical resonance with the local contexts of the players. Chapman notes that, quote, framing something as history in certain ways within popular culture can carry a particular authority and invoke notions of authenticity. Essentially, making something seem historical itself gives it authority and helps audiences perceive it as more authentic, regardless of whether it corresponds to academic understandings of history. And, as historical resonance is sometimes experienced by players based on their understanding of history, they may view something as ahistorical or inauthentic because it doesn't conform to their understanding, even if that understanding is wrong. Paradox games differ from something like Assassin's Creed in some ways in that the player is given a lot more freedom to write their own history, so to say. Ezio or Altair in Assassin's Creed, under the player's control, can choose what locations to visit, what text...
I'm not sure if he gets into that specific thing. I thought you was too cool, so bit shy to say hey. Wait, what happened? Have you guys been in the same chat like the last 5 minutes? I'm confused. Anyways, sorry.
Culture can carry a particular authority and invoke notions of authenticity. Essentially, making something seem historical itself gives it authority and helps audiences perceive it as more authentic, regardless of whether it corresponds to academic understandings of history.
This particular part, you see this in movies a lot. Movies which contain historical content or is based off of historical stuff. You see this shit all the time, and this is also why a lot of you often see like history nerds online like complain about like why like movies doing inaccurate things. Like what is it? I think like the Spartan outfits and shit, like what Sparta, like all that kind of stuff. That we have, but it's nice to be nice and say hello. Also, I'm goofy fool. Very fair, very valid. It's never too late to say hello. But like, yeah, like with Sparta, like there's this expectation of Sparta being these cool, like semi-naked, like elite warriors and shit. If Sparta isn't that, even if we don't know if they were that or not, then it's seen as inauthentic. So movies will try and make them seem like that, and they will do this with loads of different things. You know, like if you have a certain view of what a medieval soldier looked like, that's what a medieval soldier now looks like, whether it's correct or not.
And
that is what movies and people seeking profit, that is what they'll go for.
Historical resonance is sometimes experienced by players based on their understanding of history. They may view something as ahistorical or inauthentic because it doesn't conform to their understanding, even if...
Right, we're gonna move this over here to my other screen.
if that understanding is wrong. Paradox games differ from something like Assassin's Creed in some ways in that the player is given a lot more freedom to write their own history, so to say. Ezio or Altair in Assassin's Creed, under the player's control, can choose what locations to visit, what text and vistas to see that the developers have created. Paradox games differ in that they're what Chapman calls open story structure games, that lend themselves specifically to counterfactual storytelling. Essentially, every single playthrough, due to its system's complexity and open-endedness, will immediately begin producing a historical narrative that is directly counterfactual. Or, in other words, alternate.
What is it? But I also think we should teach people to be more critical about history in games and movies. No, 1000%. But the issue is we will not get that under capitalism. Because under capitalism, and our nation-state system and all that, the most important thing that people should learn is to not question. It's to like, oh, nation was great, and blah 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 blah, and like conform, and yeah.
History. Prominent authors like E.H. Carr, who I've cited numerous times, bemoaned counterfactuals as a, quote,
critical of history in general, as it always written by the victor. Sort of. I mean, always written by the victor is sort of true, but also like, I think it is a little bit of a simplification of what can happen. Like, there are Ottoman shows in Turkey that are so far from the truth, and even mentioned that is uninspired by history. I will say the one show that's called Ottoman, at least the one that's added in the West as Ottoman, that one was very sick. Although I'm sure there was a lot of inaccuracies in it. But yeah, it's ideal if everyone is more critical of history in general. As yes, it is written by the victors, even if that is a little bit simplified, I think. For example, like all history about the Soviet Union. Like just any like Western view of like contemporary enemies and all that shit, or like and whatnot. Don't trust that shit. It's like Enemy at the Gates. Don't trust that shit. I think actually Enemy at the Gates will be brought up in this video as well.
Parlor game and, quote, red herring. Or, in other words, alternate history. Prominent authors like E.H. Carr, who I've cited numerous times, bemoaned counterfactuals as a, quote, parlor game and, quote, red herring. And according to Chapman, E.P. Thompson called it Geschichtswissenschaft, unhistorical shit. Sorry for my pronunciation. Conservative historian Neil Ferguson, who I have some issues with, and will likely make a video on someday down the line, posits a different view, shared by some other historians also. In this view, counterfactuals become an implicit part of cause-effect analysis of history. Because, to understand why something happened in a certain way, in a sense, you inherently must understand why it didn't happen another way. Or, quoting Ferguson's more elegant way of putting it, to understand how it actually was, we therefore need to understand how it actually wasn't. Because paradox games diverge from the broad consensus on how things actually happened the second you hit unpause, it's easy to argue that they can't constitute any sort of real history. But that's a fundamentally flawed view. History isn't purely concerned with telling you what happened. Quoting Chapman, history is also concerned with offering explanations as to why these things happened.
Also, I have to trust the interpretation of historians in many cases. Yep, and a lot of those historians are biased or just not very good. Which is the nature of history.
Continuing, the point of these histories is not the alternate histories produced, but what these say about the actual past. Players are well aware that Adolf Hitler did not actually build helicopters with which to carry out a grand invasion of Vietnam in 1952, and in the next playthrough they'll know that the Soviet Union probably didn't descend into civil war in 1938, just because their playthrough ended that way. Chapman uses the example of the Civilization games, but the same principle applies to paradox games. He says, quote, players of Civilization are likely to construct narratives like this many times, using multiple civilizations. It therefore seems unlikely that this kind of counterfactual narrative would be very problematic for most players' historical understanding. Paradox games and similar open-ended games are still able to formulate arguments about history in the same way a historian writing a book would, through their mechanics, framing narratives, and so on. Sometimes these arguments are formulated with clear purpose, and sometimes completely accidentally through the interplay of the game's mechanics or the oversight of the developers. Because I'm making a video about history and map games, I got my friend Rosenkreutz to lend me some of his authority. Channel linked below. Once again, quoting Chapman.
Though the lack of framing narrative prevents the telling of specific historical narratives by developer historians, these games are still capable of producing particular coherent arguments that hold a discursive relationship to wider historiography, and generally have a particular thematic...
Sorry, just a moment.
epistemological, and ideological foundation of some kind.
Or put simply, these games are very deliberately made by people who are generally very good at what they're doing, even if there's bound to be some mistakes here and there. Each decision made by the developer historians takes some sort of stance regarding the topic's historiography. Each decision made in terms of gameplay positions the game deliberately in relation to other games who have tackled genres like it before. Games have ideology. They say something through the way they're made. That's not groundbreaking analysis by any means, but it has to be said for what comes later in the video.
Open ontological games sometimes therefore argue for macro long-term change in a way reminiscent of the longue durée of the Annals School of History, which primarily emphasizes the role of long-term historical structures rather than events. Whilst open ontological games forego the kinds of narrative structures conventionally associated with history, they can still be used to make strong and complex, and perhaps intellectually weighty arguments, at least in comparison to much popular history.
Let's look at another Paradox title as an example, one that leans heavily into structuralist arguments about history, Victoria 3. Victoria 3 operates on a very materialist and mechanistic understanding of history. People are grouped into pops in accordance with their material position in society, or their class. You have peasants, slaves, workers, the capitalist class, and so on. Each class also generally favors politics in accordance with their class interests. These class interests then shape the politics of your country and form the general bounds for what sort of action you as a player can take at any moment. At the start of the game, each nation finds itself in a position curated in accordance with Paradox's understanding of history, but quickly all of these nations begin to diverge from this understanding into new simulations based on player input and Paradox's laws of history. The player is free to rebel against these mechanics or these laws, but the game strongly encourages you to consider the material circumstances of your country and its social classes. In order to win, you need to have a materialist understanding of history.
Open ontological story structure games are not so much fixed histories of the past as ongoing theoretical discussions about the past. Open ontological games give players the opportunity to playfully rewrite history, and by doing so, to see what the developer-historian argues the significant elements/decisions in the production of particular outcomes were.
Among the many arguments about history made by Victoria 3's mechanics, perhaps the largest is that history in the represented period was driven in large part by material factors. Observe what leads to success in wars in the game, what technologies lead into one another and form prerequisites for certain kinds of action, which classes favor which politics, and you should quickly begin to see what arguments Paradox are making as developer historians. For example, the petite bourgeois interest group, who are primarily made up of small owners like shopkeepers, artisans and the like, small business owners in other words, tend to gravitate towards reactionary and xenophobic movements. This is something Paradox have coded into the game. Towards the late game, they form much of the base of potential fascist parties.
It is very annoying that the game itself, at least Victoria 3, was not very fun to get into in the beginning because it was very flat and very boring. I do want to try and get into it again sometime soon.
Quoting historian Roderick Stackelberg speaking on the conditions of 1930s Germany. Yet, the segment of the population from which fascism drew its maximum support turned out to be not the industrial workers, but rather the numerically large lower middle class groups, who feared the loss of their property and status, such as it was, if the socialist labor movement should become dominant. Fascism primarily attracted groups such as small shop owners, self-employed craftsmen, and subsistence farmers, who feared both organized labor and the competition of big business in an unregulated economy. You can see similar arguments being made by other Paradox games through mechanics, like Crusader Kings, which for example emphasizes that medieval succession was a messy and dramatic affair. Usually this is all unproblematic. Only some of us will get mad about the way a certain aspect is represented somewhat incorrectly according to our historical understanding, and will usually correct it through mods. However, sometimes these things can also create controversy. While most critique against the game medium has come from sources outside of game cultures, lately the audience, as well as the gaming press, are scrutinizing the work of developers and some of the values that games produce. Paradox strategy games are historical playgrounds. They don't have victory conditions beyond self-imposed challenges or achievements. Quoting Chapman, in historical games, removing endings can be seen to position history as an open-ended process, making implotment an uncertain and potentially unfinished player-led process that denies a final genre, and thus ultimate meaning for the past. That's largely a good thing. It allows the audience to think of history not just in terms of a sequence of events, but as a sequence of contingencies, which under certain circumstances could have unfolded differently. Paradox games utilize missions, focuses, and events which create tailored historical or ahistorical frameworks for the player to work through, but the games are generally very open-ended, so many of the arguments posited by the developers consciously or unconsciously emerge from the game's mechanics. When playing Hearts of Iron 4, one of the actors you can play as is Nazi Germany. In fact, when launching the game and hitting single player, it defaults to Nazi Germany and it's positioned in the dead center of the screen. While your country's leader is Adolf Hitler, you're not playing as Hitler. In his master's dissertation, Johannes Askim says there's ambiguity as to who you're playing in the game, and concludes that you're perhaps stepping into multiple roles as you play. You're playing as a disembodied spirit of the nation directing all its actions. The spirit of Nazism, the Volksgeist. This of course runs considerable risk of controversy, and of completely bungling some forms of historical representation. Quote, "Whereas World War II is a frequent theme for video games, the Holocaust is almost never mentioned and elements associated with it. It is theoretically possible to create a brilliant and educational historical representation of something like this in a video game, but there are significant risks associated with it. You can frame the game as documentary, as art, or as education. According to Chapman, war games and memorials inherently lessen the risk of controversy when involving playable Nazis. However, also, quote, adding a science fiction/fantasy layer to the fiction can sometimes seem to have a similar effect." Paradox, of course, largely sidesteps the issue of the Holocaust in Hearts-of-Iron 4, because while it is possible to create a game that's critically acclaimed and also tackle something like this, quote, "When deliberately placing some problematic themes in a ludic frame, it seems to be rather small things that stand between being perceived as brilliant or tasteless." In Hearts-of-Iron 4's recent DLC, if Hitler is assassinated, you have the option of making punished Eva Braun the country's new leader, despite her not having any political or leadership experience whatsoever. She gets an eye patch and some busted leader modifiers. Placing this alongside the Holocaust would no doubt be viewed as tasteless. In the case study of Nazis in World War II games, Adam Chapman and Jonas Lindroth found that seemingly, quote, "One way to handle the conflict between theme and the ludic frame in World War II games seems to be to tone down and whitewash the problematic nature of the conflict. The reason for this, they say, is that games seemingly have an intrinsically trivializing property. Quote, the fact we turned something into a playable unit within a system of rules opens up different meanings that compete for the attention of the player. The game's world isn't history itself, it's a game world meant to evoke history, and in that game world Adolf Hitler isn't Adolf Hitler. He's Hearts-of-Iron 4's Adolf Hitler, and maybe because of the decisions that you've made in the game, he's also a little bit your Adolf Hitler. Reinhard Heydrich in the game's world isn't the, quote, architect of the Holocaust, as he's often referred to in history, but an advisor that gives you an extra operative for espionage, suppresses resistance in occupied territories, and prevents your country from leaking intelligence to the enemy. He is a set of game modifiers. You pick him if you need those modifiers. As Chapman said, turning Reinhard Heydrich into a, quote, playable unit within the game's mechanics gives him different meanings which compete for your attention with his actual role in history.
So much
Chapman
stuff.
and Lindroth point out that most games that provide Nazi Germany as a playable position tend to separate the Wehrmacht from the rest of the Nazi establishment. Not to whitewash them for any ideological purpose, but to make the position more suitable for play. Hearts-of-Iron 4 both does and doesn't do this. It explicitly allows you to recruit SS volunteers in occupied territories, because these were historical fighting units and this is a war game. This isn't unique to Paradox. The game Steel Division 2 explicitly features SS divisions as a playable position. For example, here's the Death on the Vistula DLC, which features the 5th SS Panzer Division Viking for the price of $15. This is
Okay, real quick break, because look at this. This is enlisted. This is my Soviet unit. There's a bunch of units from other countries as well. I have not played this game for a while. I should probably have set this shit up before trying to play it. Yeesh. So much stuff going on my screen. We'll probably play something else, but there you go. This is enlisted. Actually, I'll jump into like something and like show you guys the tank or whatever.
SS Division, which featured some volunteers from the Nordic countries, can also be recruited through decisions and events in Hearts-of-Iron 4, if you occupy the Nordics as Nazi Germany. In Hearts-of-Iron 4, advisors and leaders have traits assigned to them by the developers. Referring to a previous version of the game, Askim says, quote, Hitler is described as a dictator, Ribbentrop as a backroom backstabber, and Goebbels as a demagogue. According to Askim, the language employed here deliberately implies that these historical figures are problematic. The developers utilized an active voice to pass judgment on these figures. This was changed with the new inner circle system. Now instead of dictator, Hitler is referred to as Der Führer, and his negative modifiers, resistance target plus 5% and compliance growth speed minus 2%, are the only remaining allusions to his problematic nature. Let me be clear, I don't believe Paradox's stance on Adolf Hitler has changed at all, but the way they want to represent important historical figures has changed since 2016. They're adding more mechanics and more historical context relating to these figures. The problem is, and this problem is unavoidable, the more intricate and complex the bigger picture gets, the more glaring the Holocaust-shaped hole in the middle becomes. going back to Victoria 3. With it covering the 100-year period between 1836 and 1936, it encompasses many atrocities. Colonialism itself is a central mechanic to the game, with all the historic horrors it implies. If you play as the United States, you will inevitably confront the issue of slavery and Manifest Destiny, the westward conquest of indigenous lands. Victoria 3 doesn't shy away from any of this, and it makes it a part of the game's tailor-made narrative for certain nations. As the Russian Empire, you start with a low-intensity conflict with Circassia, giving you frequent events about Russian military incursions burning down Circassian villages, or Circassian incursions into Russia to seize military supply wagons, as they try to stave off what seems inevitable.
Speaking of, Paradox actually had a minor, I call this minor, what do you call it, controversy in their own communities because of what they did in Victoria 3. And basically what happens is that the question of slavery comes up, and they very explicitly say what slavery is, that it's like a uniquely evil, like chattel slavery was like uniquely evil and all that stuff. They actually had a really good take on it, if I recall correctly. And a lot of right-wing gamers were like, no, don't have politics in my game, no, don't do that. So yeah, that's something, they held their own on that one. That was really good. Unfortunately, they're not as good on Huiful.
You can't invade in order to stop nations burning low-intensity part of the game's tailor-made narrative for certain nations. As the Russian Empire, you start with a low-intensity conflict with Circassia, giving you frequent events about Russian military incursions burning down Circassian villages, or Circassian incursions into Russia to seize military supply wagons, as they try to stave off what seems inevitable. You can't invade in order to stop these incursions, not yet. The game puts you in a truce and tells you that you'll need to invent rifling and logistics in order to have the means to escalate the war. At this point, you can get an event whereby Lieutenant General Dmitry Milutin appears as a newly promoted general, who proposes a solution to the issue of the Circassian raiders. His proposal to the Tsar is the total extermination or expulsion of the entire Circassian population of the Caucasus. Should you accept his proposal, then the general gains the war criminal trait, giving him -50 popularity but plus 10% kill rate. The Circassian population gets radicalized, and the state gets a modifier that completely tanks the standard of living for Circassians, increases kill rate in conflict there by 10%, creates 25% devastation in the region, gives 30% radical pops from discrimination, gives plus 25% push towards emigration from the region, and gives plus 10% mortality to the pops. These modifiers only apply to Circassians. If you then win the war, Russians and Ukrainians become more loyal to the empire. Russians and Ukrainian migrants to Circassia get a standard of living boost. The area gets plus 50% migration attraction, and mortality goes up another 10%. Quoting Lorenzo Veracini, settlers are made by conquest. The Circassian genocide was made to accompany the Spheres of Influence DLC, but is not itself a part of the paid content. This was a deliberate decision. Quoting developer Victoria from Paradox in Dev Diary 114. The rest of the Caucasian War requires the Sphere of Influence DLC, but the content pertaining to the Milutin Memorandum and brutal depopulation of the Caucasus does not. Whilst this is a gruesome event in history, it is also not something which can in good conscience be overlooked. There is a very clear and deliberate attempt to show the horrors of the period, and this approach to the atrocities differs from the approach favored in Hearthstone 4.
And I really like that they went with this approach. We do some historians and motions, but then others, a good historian could be considered an anarchist. Just a catalyst with the narrative, there's talking more about reconstructing all available information about the event, checking the transcription, interpretation, and meanings to frame it from a more neutral perspective. I mean, an anarchist, or could be considered a Marxist. It's also important that oral traditions and arts are included, as this was the accessible method of sharing information before literacy was more widespread. Yes, of course, like this, like it's very difficult to know how much of that is like good information, but if it's the only thing we have, then it's the only thing we have. And it just is that in many cases.
The point of this comparison isn't to say that one is doing things right and the other is doing things wrong, though I favor Victoria 3's approach over the other. It's to say that atrocity can be represented in games like this. Chapman and Linderoth pointed this out in their case study. We'll talk more about why Hearthstone 4 doesn't do this later. For the new DLC, they've added a system that depicts Nazi Germany's top-level politics called the Inner Circle system. The intent seems to be to represent a sort of patron-client system between Adolf Hitler and his top guys, with them reaping rewards as they ascend in Hitler's inner circle. Functionally, you are looking at top Nazis and Hitler himself leveling up until they reach ascendant status. Ascended Göring, ascended Goebbels, ascended Hitler, and so on. Each person's bonuses grow as they gain more influence in the inner circle, represented by the person's completing focuses in their own unique little focus tree. The implication is that you've empowered them to pursue policies in accordance with their particular character and abilities. There is an element of great man theory here that I'm not going to dwell too much on. But I want to look closer at the arguments made by the developers through these new mechanics, and compare these mechanics to those of another DLC, No Step Back. First, the new MIFO build system. Sometime in 1933, likely in a cabinet meeting on the 3rd of June, Hjalmar Schacht approved a figure of 4.4 billion Reichsmarks per annum to be spent on rearmament. This came out to between 5 to 10% of the German GDP devoted to defense. As of April 1934, armaments contractors were to be paid in special IOUs issued in the name of the MIFO company. MIFO builds have been a part of Heartland 4 for some time, but were updated alongside the recent DLC to be a mechanic that drives Germany towards rearmament and conquest. Quoting Paradox developer Mano Di Zombie, while Austrian and Czech gold reserves that were seized helped to bolster the economy and staved off an impending collapse, it only bought Germans some time. In the end, the Ponzi scheme almost bankrupted the country and can be seen as a motivation for why Germany went to war when it did. The armament program constantly required new resources to devour, so Germany was forced to continue to feed the beast, as it were. This led to large-scale plundering and theft wherever the Nazis and the Wehrmacht went, to sustain the ever-hungry war machine. The intent is to drive the German player into rapid conquests in Europe to offset the negatives of the MIFO build scheme that are constantly accruing. Implicitly, the following arguments about history are made by these mechanics. 1. Germany needed the MIFO builds to carry out rearmament the way they did. 2. Germany depended on conquest and looting to keep up the scheme, and to stave off economic collapse. 3. These two factors in conjunction can be seen as reasons for why Germany went to war when it did. I disagree that the MIFO builds can explain why Germany went to war when it did, at least when framed in this way. The argument seems to imply that Germany's rearmament necessitated war, as opposed to Germany's plans for war necessitating rearmament. It's got it all backwards. Quoting Adam Tooze, the army program of December 1933 is crucial because it pre-programmed the subsequent escalation of Hitler's foreign policy. War plans could not be made without the Ruhr Valley, the strategic industrial heartland of Germany. This was demilitarized per the Treaty of Versailles. Quote, from December 1933 onwards, the clock was ticking towards confrontation with France. On the MIFO builds and looting argument, according to Adam Tooze, the seizure of Austrian gold and foreign exchange reserves doubled Germany's reserves and momentarily rescued Germany from a balance of payments crisis. Quote, for a brief moment at least, the Anschluss freed Hitler's regime from the balance of payments. However, he also notes that for the economy as a whole, the most beneficial aspect of the Anschluss was the increase of the German labor reserve by 30 to 40%, and that in the long term, the effect of the Anschluss on the balance of payments was actually negative. Adam Tooze says, quote, but the motivation of the Anschluss was not booty. It was a strategic measure meant to position Germany more favorably economically and militarily against its smaller neighbors. While plans were being made to invade Czechoslovakia, Germany was by no means ready when the Czech government's panic spurred them into mobilization. After which, the German inaction gave the impression that Germany had been forced to back down. Hitler, inflamed by this, announced at a meeting of his senior military leadership his intention to deal with the Czechs, quote, at the earliest possible opportunity. From the spring of 1938 onwards, Hitler began seriously to contemplate the need for a major war in the West, as a prelude to his drive against the Soviet Union. Germany's rearmament had spurred similar rearmament in Britain, the United States, and France, whereby these nations were already leveraging their comparative head start. The Royal Navy had been outspending the Kriegsmarine since 1933, and the United States seemed intent on the same with Roosevelt's naval expansion bill in 1938. Britain intended to match Germany in the air, and the French government in 1938 were discussing a doubling of the military budget. This spurred Hitler to accelerate his plans. In May 1938, Hitler ordered Germany to prepare for war 1 year earlier than originally anticipated. Quote, all consideration for the civilian economy was to be set aside. What we're seeing here is Germany being spurred towards an earlier war not to offset its balance of payments problems through looting, but to not lose its armaments advantage, which of course came partly through its secretive head start through the MIFO build scheme. I think that the MIFO builds mechanic is an interesting proxy to represent Germany's rapacious looting in the period. However, I think it overemphasizes its role in the motivation for the timeline leading up to the war, to the detriment of historical representation. The MIFO builds were a means to an end to execute a planned war against Bolshevism and a conquest of Europe in general. Originally, war readiness was planned for April 1940. In 1938, Hitler accelerated readiness for war with France to April 1939. In September of the same year, 5 months after the planned war readiness, Germany and France were at war. To my mind, ideological and military strategic concerns are more beneficial to explain the timeline for when Germany went to war in World War II. at least such as it pertains to the early war. As I mentioned though, the mechanic is an interesting way of pushing the player towards war, and preventing a passive Germany. The looting is one of the few elements of Nazi atrocities hinted at in the game. However, by explicitly mentioning the seizure of gold reserves, but omitting Aryanization or other elements of appropriation and looting, which to be fair had only a minor effect on the economy as a whole, the developer could be said to be whitewashing by omission. As we've discussed, this is neither uncommon or egregious when developers approach the idea of playable Nazis in games. For better or for worse, this is the norm in gaming. The new inner circle system added by Gotthard seemed at first like it would be fairly interesting, but upon playing around with it quite a bit, it, like much of the rest of the game, is a flowchart with better and worse options, a focus tree but with bonuses you can swap between. While the game has systems that represent some of the dysfunctionality of the Nazi regime through the Wehrmacht and SS conflict, which can result in an outright coup, the inner circle system features none of this. People in the inner circle don't butt heads, nor do they seem to have their own agendas or anything really going on. They're Crusader King's advisors, but without the possibility that they're secretly plotting to kill you. They are choices between green numbers which sometimes give access to parts of the game. When you've let the Nazis cook long enough, they level up, and when they've all leveled up, you can level up Hitler. This is how Nazi leadership and politics is represented in-game. Let's compare the leadership mechanics here to those of allied nations, and specifically those added by another DLC. No step back.
Stalin has declared the Soviet Union must be protected.
Okay, real quick, we have to see this entire...
No matter the cost.
We have to have a look at this entire... What do you call it? Like, what do you call it, DLC trailer, because it's so cool. Playable Nazi in games is a really messed up sentence here. Yes. I personally am not sure how to feel about it. Because the issue is without sufficient historical knowledge leading into it and whatnot, a lot of people are just very stupid. Like, they basically get to oral farm Nazi shit with no consequences, like with nothing to, like, you know, tell them that, oh, Nazis are bad. Like, not enough to do that. I'm not concerned about who wants to play it as a Nazi. I will say that the fascists in specifically Hoi 4, the paradox, like there's something called focus trees, and if you're not a nation with it which has gotten a focus tree, going fascist is usually better because you get more manpower, which is very important. So, I went fascist in a lot of games, purely because I wanted the manpower. The thing you get as a communist is not nearly as good. I don't remember what it was though. Yeah, I will say that a lot of people play as the worst thing possible in games, very often. Dirge in Baldur's Gate 3, for example, is a very good example if you let Dirge be Dirge. Right. Not one step back, way forward. Fascism is a military advantage. Yeah, no, that's exactly. It is how they set it up, and it's not great. So we'll watch this trailer because I think it's really, really cool.
Бабушка.
Yes, child.
Why did Mama and Papa have to leave?
For survival, my child.
Why not stay here, where it's safe?
Because it is their duty. The USSR is a proud nation, but our neighbors across the border are not to be trusted. Stalin has declared the Soviet Union must be protected, no matter the cost. From the womb of Mother Russia, machines are forged to wage war in the sky, on the land, in the depths of the sea. But it is the people, the men and women of the Red Army, who pay the ultimate price when they march into certain death, so that the USSR lives on.
A really, really, really cool trailer. And it is so cool that it spawned this amazing fucking edit. 35 million views. Like, this edit. 10 times as many views as the trailer itself. Like, look at this. Like, this is peak. This is peak. This is based off of the trailer for Not One Step Back for Toy 4. Like based off a DLC for a trailer. A trailer for a DLC. Oh shit, it was available on my birthday, that's cool. I probably already knew that before. It is such a cool trailer, like specifically like this, like where is it? Like this the one with the part with the hammer. Got a scuba diver in there. Yes, we're playing Dave the Diver. Like, look at this, look at how well timed it is. So it's so well done. Anyways, that's the trailer he's showing right here.
Leadership mechanics here to those of allied nations, and specifically those added by another DLC, No Step Back.
Stalin has declared the Soviet Union must be protected, no matter the cost.
Soviet artwork with the heavy beats, yes.
Askim notes that in the version of the game he played, likely from 2020, that Adolf Hitler starts the game with a plus 25% political power bonus, and that this is, quote, justified for having the perceived appeal to notions of the real world, or in other words, historical resonance in the words of Chapman.
Also, I'm gonna say, in case you don't know, political power game plus 25% is huge. Like, that gives you a huge advantage in the game.
Askim details how this in practice is actually a 50% increase in political power, and that Germany's 2 available silent workhorse advisors, compared to most countries' 1 or none, means German politics are more efficient in game terms. Quote, it characterizes Hitler as an effective leader who can move quickly within his administration and, quote, get things done. In the current version of the game, Hitler's political power modifier has been reduced to plus 10%, but Hitler can be leveled up to get his former plus 25% modifier through the inner circle system introduced in Götterdämmerung. Contrast all of this to Roosevelt, where it simply says, quote, dislikes Germany. Part of this must be because with time the vision for Hearts-Fund 4 has changed, and so any country that has recently received a DLC will conform more to that vision, i.e. Germany, and any country that hasn't will not, i.e. the United States, which was expanded 6 years ago with Man the Guns. If you compare the nations and leaders at the time that Askim was writing, Hitler is undoubtedly positioned as uniquely competent and effective compared to other leaders who are given no mechanical impact. It should be noted that Johannes Askim goes as far as to say, quote, further, it is evident that most aesthetic aspects of the game are not motivated by a desire to take a political stance for or against Nazism. Most aspects of Nazism are more or less neutrally represented. I'll return to this in the conclusion of the video. In the meantime, let's look at Stalin. The No Step Back DLC added mechanics to Stalin's Great Purge. At the start of the game, the Soviet Union is stocked full of great generals and advisors. This very quickly changes. When you go down the historical path for the Soviet Union, you avoid a civil war and unlock the mechanics related to the Great Purge. The game presents you with 3 options: a coup, the civil war, and the historical Great Purge. An argument implied by the mechanics here is that the Soviet Union's perceived internal strife had to come to a head in one way or another, i.e. there is something at the heart of Soviet politics that is dysfunctional. On the historical path, you're essentially fighting against Stalin's paranoia to prepare the Soviet Union for the upcoming war, with as many of its competent people still alive. The game utilizes many popular conceptions of Stalinist terror to this end. You can forge production reports to placate Stalin. You can inspect the branches of the military to look for traitors. If his paranoia gets too high, Stalin will pluck a couple of leaders and make you choose who dies and who lives. He'll do this many times. However, should you make it through Paradox's depiction of the Great Purge, then Stalin levels up just like Hitler, except Hitler's political system seems very functional and very efficient. The paranoia system is removed, and Stalin starts developing his cult of personality. By carrying out propaganda campaigns through the DLC's propaganda system, you unlock more focuses that can make Stalin a field marshal and give him very strong bonuses, particularly to stability. At its core, this system is very similar to the Inner Circle system. I think No Step Back represents the new direction that Paradox Interactive decided to take with its Hearts-on 4 DLC and patches, with leader mechanics and leader growth or level ups, and people seem to like it. You can see how various elements in No Step Back led directly to how politics was approached in Götterdämmerung. Viewed in light of Askim, the very neutral portrayal of Nazism and arguably positive portrayal of Hitler as a competent politician, compared to the obviously negative portrayal of Stalin, yes, and the lack of portrayal of Nazi atrocities compared to the overt portrayal of the Great Purge, is somewhat strange. This doesn't mean that Paradox is taking any pro-Hitler and anti-Soviet stance, but it certainly leaves more room for positive interpretations of Hitler and negative interpretations of his enemies than if Paradox had been neutral across the board. Of course, the Great Purge happened, and it should be represented, and the Soviet Union faced significant challenges in its lead-up to the war and the early war, and this should be a part of the game. Even stranger still, the Götterdämmerung DLC seems to have added a new event based on a historical one, where the ye old pub bomber, retreating after taking fire during a bombing run in Germany, was intercepted by a German fighter, who chose not to open fire on the injured bomber, but instead escorted it safely away from German lines. The event is titled, quote, "A surprising display of German mercy." Something similar to this did happen in real life, and there's nothing wrong with showing moments in which select German soldiers behaved in a sympathetic manner during the war. The only problem is that the ratio of sympathetic Nazi soldiers to the ratio of depicted atrocities that show Nazi Germany in a negative light looks kinda like this. Again, it's obvious why Paradox doesn't want to have Hitler mechanics. Paradox does not want to call attention to Adolf Hitler. They don't want Hearts-on 4 to be the Hitler game. Again, it's obvious why Paradox doesn't want to have Hitler mechanics, though in retrospect they kind of added them with Götterdämmerung. Paradox doesn't want to call attention to Adolf Hitler, though they've also kind of made him level up in Götterdämmerung. Paradox doesn't want Hearts-on to be the Hitler game, but they did make a DLC about the Nazis. Paradox wants to sell DLC, and this is the most popular DLC, and it led to peak player numbers. Making a game with playable Nazis is complicated.
Of course.
Moving on.
If
I wasn't an expert on Hearts of Iron, then I'm definitely not one for this. The newest DLC adds content not just for Germany, but also for Austria, Hungary, Belgium, and Congo, which is obviously deeply tied to Belgium. There's an interesting mechanic here where Belgium has to complete some focuses and Congo has to complete some to progress a joint focus tree. This is mechanically interesting to me, and I don't think I've seen anything of the sort in Hearts-on 4 before. In the dev diary for Congo, Mordred Viking says, quote, "Now I am well aware of the elephant in the room. Belgium's relationship with Congo has not always been benign, and there was a period where horrible atrocities occurred, particularly under King Leopold II, King Leopold III's grandfather. While the situation in Congo during the Second World War had significantly improved from those dark days, things were by no means perfect. I would remind you, however, that this is a war game, focusing on the war, and as such, we are most interested in Congo's contribution to the conflict at large. I really dislike the way this is worded and framed. We may fundamentally disagree on this point, but I can't recall any period in history in which Belgium's relationship to its colonial or former colonial holdings has ever been benign, and many atrocities occurred throughout the period represented in the game.
Also being like, I want to remind everyone, this is a war game. It's such a fucking cop-out. No, Rich, you guys have so many fucking parts in the game, like so many atrocities, like simulate in the game. You can't, like, this excuse is fucking bullshit.
I really dislike the way this is worded and framed. We may fundamentally disagree on this point, but I can't recall any period in history in which Belgium's relationship to its colonial or former colonial holdings has ever been benign, and many atrocities occurred throughout the period represented in the game. To say, quote, "there was a period where atrocities occurred," and not specify that this period in which atrocities occurred encompasses the entirety of the history of the Belgian Congo, gives the impression that there was a period of the Belgian Congo where atrocities didn't occur. The developer says that while things have improved since the genuine nightmare of the past,
sadly, almost all war games feel like they're based on predominant Nazis. Yeah, no, exactly. That is a huge issue plaguing Hoifu as well.
They were still not perfect, with no reference as to how or why they were now imperfect in the World War II period. Bear in mind that this is a dev diary and not the game itself. It's my impression that developers have a lot more freedom to speak on these things and to communicate their intent behind design decisions here than they do in the game text. Quoting again from the previous Victoria 3 dev diary regarding the Circassian genocide. Accepting the memorandum will please the command of the armed forces, but lead to the historical outcome of the Caucasian War, the devastation of the region, depopulation, and the forceful expulsion of much of the Circassian population to the Ottoman Empire. I think this wording and approach to colonial history in Congo is very regrettable. As Mordred Viking says, he is well aware of the elephant in the room. This might sound harsh, but this is a very serious thing he's talking about in a very flippant manner, from a position of some authority. Yes. Allow me to briefly sketch out some aspects of this, quote, significantly improved but by no means perfect Congo. In 1941, a great wave of strikes broke.
Freda is being really nice. Like, Freda is like being pretty nice talking about this. Because my response would be, this is an idiot. Okay, maybe not. Like, I'm tempted to say that it's an idiotic response. Like, absolutely irresponsible, idiotic, dipshit response to that. No? Like, it is a horrible response. You should not talk about, like, one of the most awful continuous genocides that we know of in the last, like, few hundred years. Like that. Like, oh, elephant in the room. This is a war game, first and foremost. Blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up. No. You can just, like, acknowledge that bad shit happened. Your players will deal with it. Your Nazi players will shut up. They're not gonna give a shit. They're just gonna play their game.
Out. Partly characterized as a minor strike, but it involved workers and peasants in other areas of the economy, and their families too. The day after the strikes broke out, troops were sent to fire at protesters at Jadoville. At least 15 people were killed. These strikes spread. On the 9th of December, according to a white trade union leader, over 100 people were shot by soldiers. Quote, even though slave labor had been abolished legally, the colonial administration turned a blind eye to company-based corvées, which still existed and include forced labor for road building and village relocation. The native subdivisions of the African population of Belgian Congo were after 1933 subjected to an official scheme of forced labor that lasted up until Congo's independence in 1960. Quote, they consisted of a series of compulsory tasks of varied nature that, under the pretext of educating the local populations, were imposed on the native subdivisions for a period of 60 days per year. All legal forced labor in British and French colonies was abolished after 1945. In the Belgian colony, it remained. Here are some of the reforms carried out in the 1950s to improve the lives of the colonized people in Belgian Congo. Quote, from 1953, Africans were allowed to own private land. In 1955, they were authorized to buy alcohol. From 1957, they were even granted limited rights to vote for their own candidates in elections to control local administration. 3 years before independence, Africans were given limited political rights to vote for their own candidates for local governance. That's the extent of the political rights Belgium wished to afford its colonized subjects in 1957, over 2 decades after the game's start in 1936. Comparing Belgian Congo's nightmarish conditions for Africans prior to 1908 to the nightmarish conditions for Africans after 1908, and saying things had improved but were by no means perfect, is just an incredibly tone-deaf way of speaking about this sort of issue that implicitly whitewashes Belgian colonialism after 1908, which I firmly do not believe was the intent, by the way. Earlier I mentioned that the combined focus tree is interesting mechanically, but it also poses some problems. Virtually all of Congo's economic development relies on Belgium, meaning should you achieve independence, most of the left-hand colonial economic side of the focus tree is no longer accessible to you. In game terms, and therefore in the arguments posited by the developer about history, this means Congo's optimal path is one of compliance with Belgian paternalistic economic development up until a point where they are ready for independence. This gels very much with Belgian colonial propaganda of the time, which was used to, among other things, justify the forced labor system. There's also this weird focus in one of the monarchist paths where you equip your soldiers with traditional masks and armor, which I'm not sure how to comment on.
What the fuck?
This has so far been a lot of nitpicking about what's essentially
I forgot about
a somewhat complex story connected to things that matter a great deal.
I need to swear this. I forgot about that bloody part. In order to raise morale of troops, we equip them with traditional Kuba armor. We can also intimidate our foes using traditional masks. Add Cuban armor and masks which grants division organization. Plus 10% division recovery, plus 10% war support, plus 50% division attack and defense, minus 5%. I think it's an okay trade-off. I don't remember how good of a trade-off this is, but Yeah, this is yikes. Very yikes.
This has so far been a lot of nitpicking about what's essentially a toy. A somewhat complex toy connected to things that matter a great deal to us, but still a toy. But as I've shown, it's also a toy academics are starting to take seriously. Video games may have an outsized ability to influence the way people perceive the world, especially in terms of history. As Chapman mentioned...
And they should take it seriously, much like movies have a huge effect on people's perception of history, so do video games. Especially because video games are a lot more hands-on.
Games like Hearts of Iron have the power to create particular coherent arguments about the wider historiography through their mechanics. These arguments are more accessible to a general audience than much of that wider historiography, in the same way this video is, or a movie might be. And as we mentioned, these open-ended games can also sometimes portray arguments about history that are not intended by the developers as a quirk of their mechanics, an absence of the portrayal of something, or outright bugs. Video games have the power to engage people who may not be engaged by or have access to a good history book. And as we've established that video games can be history, video games, alongside primary education, can also end up constructing someone's baseline understanding of history. This is how you get what some people online call paradox brain, whereby someone's assumptions about politics, geography, history, war, and so on follow many of the baseline assumptions in paradox games, often with a tenuous grasp on the rest of the historiography. This is also how you get mentally unwell 14-year-olds subscribing to a fake Nazi ideology invented for an alternate history mod for Heartland 4, because they saw a Poland Ball post about it. I opened the video with Chapman relating the profound impact Medal of Honor had on him as a teenager. He now has a PhD and researches historical representation in games. I myself was influenced by games like Age of Empires, Total War, Heartland 2, Europa Universalis 3, Victoria 2, and countless others. I think the power of popular history shouldn't be understated. For many of us, it forms a large part of our local situation, as Chapman says, which lays the foundation for our historical resonance, our sense that something is authentic. Paradox as a company has an outsized influence on history in a way few others do. A history book may be read by thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands in its entire lifetime. A DLC with some odd representation of Congo and the Nazis
the game didn't give us any information before we started the race.
100,000 people in a single day. Paradox wielding outsized influence comes with a degree of responsibility. Exactly how far this responsibility goes isn't clear. One could argue that Paradox has a responsibility to wield its powerful position for good, to educate and perhaps even influence. Some might argue that this is better left to individuals trained specifically for that task. Paradox is a publicly listed company whose job is to sell games for profit. Their developers are placed in the unenviable dual role of historian and game developer, while probably only being formally trained for the latter. As they're trying to utilize mechanics to represent history authentically through play and teach the players a set of game historical rules, there's also a degree of pedagogy involved, but I doubt many of the developers are trained teachers. With all this taken into account, I think it's impossible to demand that Paradox be at the forefront of historical research, and that they'll represent everything accurately. Paradox developers can't be experts in every field. Just like me, they have to rely on what they can get a hold of and read within a certain time frame, jumping from one topic to another every few months. Paradox cannot be held responsible for picking up the slack of the education system. One can hope that they'll use their position to educate, but that shouldn't be an expectation. I expect Paradox to treat history with reverence and respect. I want them to not leave too many things open to the personal interpretation of a non-expert player base. Without delving into gross or really uncomfortable things, I want them to be able to say, you are playing the bad guys. The developers very often say Heartland 4 is a war game, but I think that's too reductive. It's a World War II game at this point, seeking to simulate more and more elements of the entire conflict. And neutral representation of World War II leaves too many things open to alternate narratives about the war. Quoting Askim, the fact that a neutral portrayal of Nazism in relation to other portrayals of the ideology is one of the most sympathetic forms of portrayal one can...
how good this video is by Fredo. Like, this is one of my favorite videos on YouTube as a whole. Partially because I resonate a lot with it as someone who's played a lot of Paradox games, a lot of Hoi4. And someone who didn't grow up a leftist, who became a leftist after learning about a bunch of stuff, partially through watching Hassan. And I think that he's really, really good at explaining how the display of history, like the portrayal of history in Paradox games, very much shapes how history is viewed. Like what people view as the reality of history. And what consequences it can have. Like, I think that this is one of my favorite... No, I think this is one of the best works by Freddo, and this is one of my favorite just videos in YouTube. This is one of my favorite YouTube videos because it's so good.
Get in mainstream culture might go some way in explaining the alt-right's fascination with this game, as described in chapter 1.3.1. While the game doesn't contain explicit support for their ideology, there is space in its portrayal for these players to project their ideology onto it that might not be there in a lot of other representations of Nazism. An alt-right player can interpret Germany's ability to mobilize early as a sign of fascism being a superior political ideology, take the portrayal of Hitler as a pure portrayal of strength and powerful leadership, and read the various audiovisual signs that code the Nazis as the villains, as instead being appealing and cool. Continuing the quote, "I'm not sure if it's possible for a game such as Hotline 4 to entirely shut down the interpretive space open to white supremacists, as its genre, a grand strategy game, demands some level of equivalence between the two sides in order to be functionally playable. As we've seen, the bar for what alt-right communities need to project their ideology onto something is, after all, so low that they projected it onto Taylor Swift, without ever having heard a positive word about their movement from her. Askim doesn't believe the game in and of itself can contribute to the formation of a positive opinion of the Nazi regime. Quote, if they come to the game with a completely neutral opinion of Nazism and or little knowledge of it, I do not see how such an open and ambivalent representation can be decidedly formative. Instead, there is a high likelihood that some radicalization occurs in the interactions between a subset of the members of the Hotline 4 community. The fact that Hoi 4 is essentially politically neutral in its representation, but the community around it has members who seem to actively work to spread pro-Nazi rhetoric and propaganda, indicates that work to combat radicalization should focus on community engagement first. The Hoi 4 community doesn't exist in a vacuum after all, but is reliant on platforms such as Reddit, Discord, YouTube, Steam, and Paradox official forums. Paradox isn't responsible for teaching you history, but their hands-off and ambivalent approach comes with significant risk of leaving space open for alternate and wrong interpretations of the historiography to be exploited by bad actors in their community. The only responsibility that Paradox has when it comes to historical representation is to not mess up. As Paradox games have outsized influence on popular conceptions of history, it means they need to be careful. The only real responsibility that Paradox has when it comes to historical representation is to not mess up. Thanks for watching, and special thank you to all the patrons who have supported me while I've had a lot of life stuff to deal with. I've had to move apartments because of my terrible landlord, I've had hardware issues causing strange phantom wind on my microphone which required a lot of re-recording voiceover and other things, which of course slow down video production. Without your support, this channel would not be possible. If you'd like to support me, the link is on screen. Special thank you to the patrons at the $10 tier. John D, Alice D, Ishire, Jordan M, and Monday's Last Brain Cell. Thank you all so much.
Once again, really good video by Freddo. In case you weren't here, please put on the video to watch it on the side to support it. Right. Let us find something else to watch. I'm very tired. So we'll probably not be on for much longer. Let's see if someone is on in Twitch. We can watch for a wee bit. Oh, Freddo is playing Mutagenics. Let's see what that's about.
Guillotine invasion, I think. Your weapons have +1 damage, and you spawn 5 to 10 coins when
actually,
downed,
what I might do.
I don't know why, but this guy's doing like.
What I think I might do is
when I was playing it with him,
wrap up Dave the Diver by myself, and maybe we'll just go raid Freddo.
Oh yeah, I think I was forced to do the forbidden fart because this guy should have.
We're going to raid Freddo.
Yeah, he's got the forbidden.
Sorry everyone for the stream being a little bit shorter today. I am somehow very tired right now. Don't quite know why that is, but there you go.
The forbidden fart, which gave him necrosis.
Let us.
Isn't great. I probably should not have.
There we go. Let us raid Freddo. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you, and I hope to see you again all soon. Have a really nice first day of Ramadan. Be sure to do your prayers if you are a believer. In general, just take care. goodbye and assalamu alaikum. Oh, right, also, just do whatever raid message. Whatever raid message you feel is appropriate. Now go forth.